Lampard.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast. On Monday, the 16th of December, 2019, I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Woo.
And Robert Kemp.
Hello.
This is
Sorry,
episode...
that's some classically bad intros.
I didn't have anything, have any asides today. I'm just feeling like I should greet people for once.
Okay.
Greet them with a
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Konnichiwa.
What?
What?
Apparently this is a special episode. Why is that?
Apparently.
It's because it might be roughly the 256th episode we've done.
Approximately.
Roughly, because precision's not important.
With some wiggle room for the Tardcasts and point ones and
Weirdly missing episodes.
and weirdly missing episodes.
So what's significant about my personal favourite number, 256?
Well, it's the first number that's outside the range of an 8-bit integer.
There you go.
It's the total number of combinations an 8-bit integer can have.
Probably not the reason that we like it, though. I think the reason we like it is because it's like 4 times 32.
Yeah, but that's the same reason.
Yeah, but that's not for a mathematical reason, more for a pixel-based grid reason.
I'm sure there are far more mathematically interesting numbers, but
Sure.
Yeah, but it was it was 32 pixels rather than 30 because it was using
Because it divides evenly into a screen resolution.
Exactly, which also based on 8 bits.
powers
right?
of 2.
Exactly, powers of 2. And it's the best power of 2 because 64 is too boring. And you can't go, you're not going to go higher than 256. That would be like too long. So it's the ideal number.
I was going to say, what is 16-bit? It starts hitting like, what, 50-something thousand? Something like that.
Yeah, no one's going to remember that for
Exactly.
a podcast number.
Exactly. I've already forgotten it.
So there we are. 256 is special to us, and now by extension you, because this is a special episode.
Eat it.
Yeah. But we haven't quite decided how to make it special, so we're going to start with the normal stuff.
Yeah, we're going to do news anyway.
Stuff happens.
Otherwise, we're going to have like an entire month and a half where we don't do news, which probably is not great.
Yeah. So,
Given that hot off the press news is the Xbox thingy was announced.
That's
Xbox
like
thingy.
the most hot.
I mean, yeah, it's most hot.
I mean,
I mean,
I just love how like PlayStation nailed it with the names. They went with PlayStation 2, genius, and then 3. For no one has to worry about naming the damn thing. You just call it PlayStation 5 and be done with it. Whereas
Yeah,
Xbox-
but Xbox didn't want to be one generation behind in their numbers.
No, so they screwed themselves by going straight to 360, and they've been stuffed ever since.
And
Yeah, but
then
they should have continued from 360. That would have been the solution. Just-
720.
Yeah, exactly. We
The
all said it at the
1080.
time. Just keep adding numbers in increments of 360 and you'll be fine.
They could have called this new one the Xbox 4K, right? Because it's the first one that's like a
Yeah, it's too
true
boring,
4K platform. And
Yeah,
then and then
4K
and then
isn't
it'll be
cool.
the Xbox 8K.
They should
could've
call it
just called
Xbox
it-
4X and only allowed that kind of game to be developed for it.
That would have been difficult.
And they couldn't call it the Xbox 2020 edition either, because then the life cycle of these things is like 5 odd years. So
It's
it's
going to
Is it
sound
though?
old by the time. Yeah.
You call it the Xbox XX for 2020.
20XDX.
See?
20. I
There you
guess.
go. Come up with
2020.
stupid names.
You'd have to call it XXXX if you wanted to be 2020, and then we're back to 4X again.
In 20XDX, war was beginning.
I'm surprised they haven't called it Xbox Next yet.
Someone set up us the console. I think that name was being thrown around a little bit at
Oh,
the
sure.
start of the Xbox.
Last time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Probably better than Xbone, but I don't know.
I mean, what are we going to shorten the? Hang on, let's just say it. The Xbox Series X. I mean, is it just going to be the XSX?
The
Like, if you're
XX.
shortening it, the XS,
The
the XX, the double X. I'm playing it on my double X.
It's the same
But-
thing that we said that was going to be the problem when they made the Xbox S, where you're like, now you've got the S and the X, essentially. Mispronunciations ensue.
X-Bone X. Like,
I didn't realize that the Tesla models were named. Obviously, they're a joke, right? Did you know that?
no.
That, they started with the Model S, and then there's the Model 3 and the Model X, and the next one is the Model Y.
S3X.
XY.
Rob has suddenly forgotten what leet speak is.
It's like leet speak.
Oh!
That's so stupid.
Oh!
Yeah. But then they've ruined it by having Cybertruck.
The sexy
Cybertruck, yeah. Oh, man. We haven't talked about the
Can I-
Cybertruck. We should probably talk about that at some
Can I
point.
turn that into a haiku? Is that where they go?
Probably.
They can't go any further with one word. Apparently,
Yeah.
they've cut that one off. Because they want to. No, wait, you can't.
They've got the
you can't
first
even
line,
extend
haven't
that.
they? Sexy Cybertruck. Then they need 7 syllables.
So the Series X. I mean, anyway,
It's
what
weird.
about what?
It's a
I'm
strange
just
name.
getting distracted by the name because they
Well,
have to come up with
yeah,
a stupid
well,
name. But
Because let's talk about it. That's what you do with a new console. The series,
Yeah.
it's a weird name, right? Because like you'd think that given that X is obviously important to the brand, but they did the 1X, right? So starting the next series of consoles with Series X.
and Series
Surely
kind of
kind of
implies there's
feels
going to
like
be another series, right? After,
Yeah.
right.
Well, okay, so there was always the rumors of there being 2 SKUs flying around. The Anaconda, which is what we saw, which is the high tier console, and Lockhart.
that word is ruined
being-
by what's her name?
My Anaconda don't
Yeah, that's the one.
run because it's got fun. Well, technically, Sir Mix-a-Lot.
So it makes a lot. Yeah, sorry, I meant.
It's to blame, but
Fair enough. I'll
kind of
blame
brought it
the
back.
Mix-a-Lot then.
Yeah.
Rather than it. Why can't I remember the name of the most famous woman ever? Not Iggy
Nicki
Azalea.
Minaj.
Nicki Minaj. That's it, Nicki Minaj. There we go. She's dropped off, hasn't she?
I haven't heard anything from her for
yeah.
ages.
Anyway.
Yeah. I'm not particularly seeking her out. Let's put it that way.
No.
Yeah. So the Series X. Yeah, it's like so. Maybe they'll have a Series S as well, or
God, I hope not.
or it'll be the Series XS or the
SX.
S Series X. So when they do a pro version of this, like a couple years down the line, like 2023-ish,
The Xbox Series 1X1.
the Xbox Series X. Maybe they will just call it the Double X Series Double X or the Series X2.
So
Then
they'll
they'll be happy
called
to
the
drop-
XX.
Yeah, no, but then maybe they'll be happy to drop start coming up with normal numbers at that point, and they'll
No,
be
it'll
like,
be-
"This is the X2."
It'll be XI. They'll go Roman numerals, and it will have been 10 all along, like
Oh, the Series 10.
Apple.
Oh, I've been getting it wrong.
Yeah, but
So
then
it's a
they'll get in
vertical-
a Mac OS situation where
Yep, exactly.
OS
where
10.
everyone calls it OS X, and the Apple will get really annoyed. No, it's OS
But
10.
Microsoft will do it backwards.
It's the
That's what they
iPhone.
want to do.
It's the iPhone 10. No, it's not. You put an X there.
Yeah, they put an X. Yeah, then they did it in reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I guess that was the same, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
iPhone
same
10,
way around.
yeah.
They wanted to
same
call
thing.
it the 10, but it's
they
like,
put an
no,
X there.
You put an X there.
What have they done now? Oh, XS, right? Oh, but they must call that. They don't call that the 10S, do they? Oh, fuck, who cares? Sorry, I just realised I didn't care at all.
It just dawned on you.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about a vertical black slab as opposed to a horizontal black slab?
Well, how pissed off is Rob that it's not going to fit in his entertainment centre, except maybe where his amp is, maybe.
I mean, it might be fine, but like, because we're still there is a long running plan to eventually get rid of all this stuff and change it. but-
Always,
yeah,
forever,
Yeah.
never going to happen.
it's been
You swap
several
out one
years.
thing at a time, at most.
I still haven't found an entertainment center I like and would work in this room.
I mean, you'll just have to stack it on top of one of your speakers, basically. Or the other way around, potentially.
Yeah,
are you,
okay, so
are you
my-
even automatically sold on the next Xbox? Like,
Well, so the one thing that is pushing me in that direction is Game Pass,
right?
and the fact that Halo Infinite will be a launch title.
Is it a launch
Sure.
title? Oh, okay. Well, they need that.
Yeah,
They
they
need a
confirmed
killer
that
app.
now.
It better be good. Those guys, yeah. Dude.
so it's Yeah, well, I've played that Halo Reach. It's got problems.
Oh, really? Oh, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Well, we might not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Unless you want to turn that into some news, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. The verticality of it is a slight problem for my setup. I'm not going to lie. I could rearrange things down there a little bit. It could work.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It might be close to being too tall to fit in that gap.
Yeah, well, it's not actually like if you think about like a controller stood upright, it's not. That is nearly half the height of that thing, so it's not a huge device. Actually, they've just chosen to orient it vertically. Now there's some conjecture that that's actually because of like heat. They want the heat to rise through the case and
You mean
just
like
be
the
blasted
V-shape
out
on the
top.
PlayStation 5 where the vents are on the top?
It's a dev kit.
I'm still sticking to this.
No,
I'm telling you.
No.
Weird shape. Now the Xbox have done it, weird shapes are a thing.
it's not that weird a shape. It's a big oblong. It's just upright. It's in that same plastic they used for the X as
Sure.
well. So I can't just call the X anymore. The Xbox One X as opposed to the Series X.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think it's all right. Does the other question is does the grill actually glow green like it look like they made it look like?
Yeah. A question.
Is it
I
actually
mean,
glow green?
they could easily make it glow green, obviously. Like,
No.
I think the like blue LED glow, like in the Wii and stuff, was a bit over the top.
Okay,
Yeah, but that was not like an intentional glow. That was just like, this was the LED we used.
the Wii's was hella bright. That was its problem. Is it was so bright.
Blue LEDs in general are like too bright, usually, if you put them alongside other LEDs.
It's because they require more energy, isn't it, to power? Or shouldn't they
Yeah.
be dimmer by that logic? Like, just because they require more energy to make
Let's not
blue
try
light.
and talk about physics.
Well, yeah, I'm not actually quite. Maybe they're just more efficient.
I have no idea.
Or maybe.
But
Oh,
but the
wonder
Wii's
why.
one was totally worse because of its notification flicker, right? If your Wii wanted to tell you anything, the drive bay just started flashing,
Yeah.
even when you weren't using the thing. So it would just be like in the corner of the room going. That's what flashing sounds
Yeah,
like.
that's what you now you've got to put a speaker in there.
I think it looks all right. It's a featureless black cube oblong, but that didn't mean there were plenty of tweets coming out about, hey, the age of the fun-looking console is well and truly gone now.
Yeah, it is. But to be fair, the original Xbox, I mean, it was fine, but it's just a box of a PC, right, with a bit of plastic molding around it, and that's
Pretty much, yeah.
pretty much all you need now. I mean, Xbox One is even more so that, right?
Well, yeah, and it's highly likely PlayStation's just going to be exactly the same kind of thing.
And the Nintendo ones are constrained by being an actual handheld device now, so they can't look crazy like a GameCube or whatever.
No, they've got to look functional.
Yeah.
Just because they
need to be functional. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're symmetrical Joy-Cons and sort of symmetrical
You're not actually symmetrical
but,
at
you
all,
know,
Joy-Cons.
symmetrical in terms of outer shape.
Yeah, the wackiness is over.
So maybe PlayStation 5 does look like a V.
Yep, exactly.
They're the ones that have to
highly doubt
hold
it.
the torch. I mean, I'm with you there. There was another nice little tweet out there that had that was saying it's like, oh, these two would go well together, and it had the Xbox opening like a fridge, and then the V in the PlayStation being used to heat a pizza slice.
You could probably
Not
heat
the
a pizza
PlayStation
on
3
these
grill,
things.
though. I mean, come on.
It's not the George Foreman, no, but who grills a pizza?
You put something else in there. It doesn't always have to be pizza.
It does when Rob's around.
You probably could grill a pizza if you put it upside down so the cheese was on the grill.
I was just going to fry my pizza. Then.
Yeah, I
Just put it in
don't
a
know
pan,
how that would actually
Yeah.
pan out in the end.
pan out.
Whether that would even manage to cook the base.
Yeah, the bread would have to be like specifically friable. Like maybe a tortilla, maybe a slightly thicker tortilla, so it's got some rigidity that you can flip.
Let's not talk about food.
You get hungry already.
I'm always hungry. At, like dinner time.
That's his secret.
I don't know what there is to say. There's a new Xbox coming, and it's got a dumb name.
Yeah. Well, we didn't really learn anything important, I guess, from this, other than its shape. I mean, we don't know if that drive on it is like a 4K Blu-ray drive, although I assume it would be, given the S and the current X have it.
I guess it's interesting it has a drive at all. Like physical media continues.
Yeah. That's we didn't know whether or not it would have one, but now we do, which is, I don't know. I think that's positive. If they want to keep the 4K Blu-ray as a selling point, at least, then maybe the Xbox SAD or S All Digital Edition hasn't done particularly well. That was the version that took the drive out. So maybe they're just doubling back and being like, oh well, might as well. It's the high-end unit. It might as well have a drive. Yeah, I don't know. The controller, people seem to think looks a tiny bit different. I mean, there's a share button now on the face. Not replacing any other button. It's just an extra button.
Right.
It's got that.
PlayStation style.
Yeah, because remember that was the thing that originally that was a Connect feature, wasn't it? You'd shout at it to say, "Hey, record that," and it would capture the last 30 seconds of video. Or and then they made it a shortcut in the guide at some point, so you could get to it that way. So yeah, this makes a bit more sense, I suppose, for people that are into that from their consoles. And also, like, there's apparently some contouring changes that to the controller that they have talked about, just in terms of like how it sits in the hand to make it slightly more comfortable for people of all hand sizes, like ergonomics.
Right, that's
They're
good.
still looking at it, but as far as new features go,
I heard it's got
probably none.
I heard it's got the D-pad from the new Pro.
Yeah, so it's not
controller.
quite the same as the Elite D-pad.
Elite one, yeah.
It's
Elite
like
controller.
the Elite one has got, well, the Elite has several in the box that you can swap and change, but the default one for that is just that sort of concave grid-like panel, isn't it? Whereas this one is now a full circle, but the D-pad shape is raised within it. So so it's a little different. It's pretty close. I'm interested to try out what those D-pads actually feel like. What the those big sort of concave things like. They sort of make sense in my head, but I'd quite like, especially for fighting games and things like that. But I'd quite like to put my thumb on it before I make a decision there. Yeah, so that's pretty much all we know about the Series X, other than we know about one more game for it, which I'm hugely excited about, but like, it was kind of a surprise, I suppose, given that Ninja Theory are already working on Bleeding Edge. There it is, I remembered it.
Oh, you remembered that other game.
Just in time, yeah. We were talking about this before the cast, and I couldn't remember its name. But just did. Yeah, they're currently working on Bleeding Edge, so it's a bit of a surprise to see them also working on Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2. And if that trailer is anything to go by, which they claim was entirely in-engine, holy hell. I mean, maybe that's...
Was that entirely in-engine?
Phrase. That's so they say, yeah.
I did watch that. It looked like a cinematic.
I mean, yeah,
but yeah,
like
fair
some of those shots look ridiculous. Like,
I guess
the
it's the next Xbox, so I guess.
Yeah. There's the shots that have me most confused are the ones where it's like just going over landscape, right? And it's like the sheer fidelity of the lighting, like, and how real that looks.
Yeah,
is insane.
Okay, well,
there are some clues in some of the close-ups, like of some depth of field stuff that perhaps makes it look like a render, sort of on the when they're zooming in on the skull and bones and stuff on the floor and things like that. There's some hints there to show you that it's not that it might be in some sort of real-time engine as opposed to a pre-rendered engine.
Yeah.
But they already proved that their motion capture is ridiculous in the first game. So I'm gonna stand and believe it. Look. I'm believing it right now. Could be a target render, but we're not sure. Digital Foundry did a little look at it as well to be like, oh, what have we got in here in terms of like, is there some ray tracing going on in some places? It's not really the right sort of footage for that, but they theorized that some of the water reflection could be ray tracing.
Anyway, they've promised the hardware ray tracing, I presume.
They have,
probably.
yes.
So it's fine.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about that. Although I'm a little bit confused about what it could be about, because the first one felt like a somewhat contained experience, and the story felt like a beginning and end. So what this is now, it's like is Senua leading this mysterious tribe, or despite her problems, despite her psychosis and all this, or maybe leading the whole tribe down a dark path. I don't know. Probably madness.
Guess we'll see.
Get hype. Go Ninja Theory. You go, Ninja. Good idea. Then the Game Awards also was happening. This was announced at the Game Awards, which is a bit surprising. Everyone thought this would be like, well, the general consensus, as far as I heard, it would be like, oh, they're probably going to do the March play like they always do in these sorts of timings. It's like March would be roughly around the time Microsoft would do a reveal, and then PlayStation would come out very soon afterwards with their details, and then they'd both come out in the holiday. That's just sort of the pattern of how this works now. But no, they've come out early a little bit to sort of say, yep, here we are. Here's what it is. So your move, PlayStation, I suppose. What else we got? Let's talk about that Ghost of Tsushima trailer. That's very pretty.
It's pretty. Talk about landscapes.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Lots of trees.
Yeah.
Happy little trees.
I mean, is that like the last hurrah for the PlayStation 4, I guess?
I mean, probably. That's
along with The Last
game.
of Us Part 2.
Yeah, they're both releasing pretty close to each other now. I think Last of Us is, May-ish? And this was announced as summer, so it'll be like maybe a few months afterwards.
They both look pretty great, but this looks... Yeah, it looks good. I mean, it's hard to get a feel for the combat or whatever, because it's just a cinematic trailer.
Yeah.
There's a bit of gameplay in there, clearly.
Yeah, I haven't shown a huge amount, but it does look I mean, it looks great. I love the setting. I love the style they're going for.
Yeah.
It's a bit of me. It's very much a bit of me.
Our kind of thing.
Yeah.
Apart from possibly Dark Souls combat.
Possibly Dark Souls combat, yeah.
Yeah, but it's probably going to be more God of War-like combat, isn't it? In that, like, Dark Souls light.
Yeah, and I would hope it that way. But it might not. It might be brutal. It might be like one stab and you're nearly dead kind of thing.
Could be.
Because,
I mean, that original trailer they showed at E3 definitely had those grunts that just die if you do it right.
Yeah. Which is exciting in itself.
But I mean, that can be a Dark Souls thing too. There was a whole, even in the first Dark Souls, like you had the whole parry mechanic where you could, if you do it exactly right, you just do massive damage.
Massive. Yeah, excited about that still. Gears Tactics. They showed us some stuff from that. And I have to say, like, okay, we didn't get a super detailed glimpse, but it looks like it's like the story stuff at least seems to be done with a similar quality level as the main game. It looked relatively well produced, and the tactics look like a XCOM ass tactics game. I think this might be one to watch. Just saying, it looks good. Yeah, I just want to say, I don't want to talk about Fortnite too much because obviously I don't play it and I don't understand. And it won the best ongoing game at the Game Awards. But when I think his name is Mustard, that's his actual name. His like surname is Mustard. Yeah. When he was on stage and he sort of said that there's like 1,000 people that work on that game now. Which I just sort of my head was suddenly like, oh, does that mean there's like nearly $50 million worth of development going into this every year?
Mm.
How much money must they be getting back? Oh my word. So much money.
Fortnite's a mystery to me. I watched you play at that time. I was like, looks fine.
I mean,
looks good, but
I actually think Fortnite would be more fun would it not if how to say this? Take the building out. Take that whole system out and I think I'd have more fun with it.
But isn't that what people like?
I mean, every time I just hate how it like I don't know how you can play it like when it gets to the end game and people are just making these giant forts and they're constantly being destroyed and constantly being built and constantly in that transparent blue blueprint phase.
Yeah, it's always like, just like everything is half finished and you're constantly like jumping off and rebuilding and
it's just
taking bits down. It's just like it's a big mess at the end game.
It's a huge mess, and I don't see like none of that is appealing to me at all. Like it's just, and it must require such a finesse with the controls to build the exact thing at the exact point, and don't get me wrong, like the skill involved in doing that and actually still know what's going on must be immense. So all credit to those that can. I don't want to do that. I just kind of want to enjoy the world and shoot some fools, and like all of that end game just is not appealing to me because it's just like I'm never going to win this.
Well, you get to play PUBG then.
No, I play Apex.
Well, yeah, well, I guess sort of similar.
I much prefer Apex. Yeah, and that's and Vin Diesel turned up to talk about a Fast and Furious game.
A bad Fast and Furious game, probably.
With Michelle Rodriguez.
Or like,
she was there.
I guess an incredibly average Fast and Furious game, as they always are.
I mean, yeah, it might play all right, but the visual fidelity was pretty poor. Like I was thinking in my head a little bit, it's like, oh, is this a mobile game? And it's like, in which case, that's an all right looking mobile game. But then like the title card came out and it was like PS4 and Xbox, and it's like, oh, okay. Maybe didn't have the budget you were hoping for there, or they're having
some reason,
or they're having to rush it out the door before Fast 9 comes out.
Probably more likely.
Fast 9. And I think we could probably leave the news there.
Cool, yeah.
Unless something else happened, like Zach's got that face that he's got some surprise news that he hasn't talked about.
I think it's surprise news.
Surprise news.
We didn't have a chance to talk about Rocket League's thing, did we?
I suppose we haven't talked about Blueprints.
No,
since that's gone live.
And also the fact that they've now changed it, I guess.
Wait, again?
What do you mean again? That's just that one time.
Okay, well I don't. All right. Because I don't think I've paid attention to it since it first went up, right? And all the
and then you realise you don't care even more than you did with crates.
Yeah, I care even less because the prices seem so huge.
But that was what got changed.
Yeah. Okay. So what has it changed to? Because I remember, like, what was it black market could set you back like 20 quid's worth of.
That's the one that hasn't changed. It's pretty funny. Basically, they decided not to change just black market. So all the black market stuff still costs like 20 quid, essentially.
So if I still wanted that ice explosion that I don't have the blueprint for.
But then everything else, exotic and downwards, their prices got significantly cut to what you might almost consider almost reasonable levels. Like even just the rare, the shittiest tier of shit stuff that no one cares about, that's only like 50 credits now.
The thing is that without decryptors, you can't in the Rocket Pass earn enough credits to cover both your Rocket Pass and unlock some stuff.
No,
right?
they got rid of the whole idea of decryptors. Like you were hoping they were just going to give you a few extra credits, basically. But then they
like, have the free tier give you something as well as the paid tier.
I guess, but they don't want. I guess they don't want people to be able to save up enough credits to get into the Rocket Pass without ever paying. I guess.
I mean,
because then you could still get even more.
But it would take a really long time, as a thing. Like you wouldn't give enough away. Like you'd pay maybe
but in order to be able to
creds or something.
Well, sure, but even to be able to get enough to buy anything, you would have to give like a couple of hundred on the free tier, and that's only like 5 Rocket Passes away from getting into Rocket Pass for free.
I know, but they've only had 5 Rocket Passes, and it's like, I don't know. It's a goodwill gesture for the players that are still playing, regardless.
They should have just
everyone paid at some point, right?
They should have just given. They should have just kept decryptors, but made them like tier-specific decryptors, like a decryptor that can only unlock a rare.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
So yeah, everyone was super pissed about the prices, and then everyone continued to be pissed because they didn't actually change black market, which is the only things everyone cares about. Although it was also funny, they actually also. What you may have noticed if you looked at the blueprints is that like there's modifiers to the prices based on like stat tracking and color and whatever.
Yeah.
But in the post where they changed the prices, they specifically called out that the white is like plus 100 credits because obviously that's what everyone wants, and burnt sienna shitty brown is 0.
Oh, okay.
There's no modifier for brown. It's literally so bad that they're like, we can't even charge you more for that.
If you're down with the brown, your luck's in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, it's good in the sense that it gets rid of the gambling aspect, but
the prices are ridiculous.
The prices are nuts, and it just means I'll never engage with that system now.
No, because you don't even get free stuff anymore.
Yeah. I'll stick to my Rocket Passes, thanks. Of which, Rocket Pass 5 seems like a fairly decent one in terms of the kit.
Yeah, so reasonable.
Yeah. So that's a thing. Is that news?
That's the news.
I guess.
Dan's decree.
It's not time for what you've been playing.
Well, I mean, technically.
It might be.
We played games at some point in the past is generally what we're talking about.
What have you played?
Yeah.
Open question.
What are we going to do? What do you want to talk about for this? Now that we're free of the restrictions of our podcasting format.
Well, basically, we have no idea. So we've all come up with our own shit, and we're just going to start talking about stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
I want to talk about finishing Outer Worlds. No.
Save that until after the game of the year.
Actually, I haven't got a huge amount to say, so it's like, sure. It can wait. It can wait. All right, go on then, Zach. Kick us off.
Yeah, kick us off, Zeg.
Well, I came up.
You seem most prepared.
Yeah, I made notes and shit.
Nice.
Like, well, so originally, just in case, one of our early ideas of what we were even going to talk about for the special episode was just like our favorite games ever, even though we all realized very quickly that would be a real boring list because it's all the same things that we always talk about on the podcast, essentially.
Yeah.
The same topics that we bring up because they're our favorite games, so we're bound to bring them up.
I can only talk about Panzer Dragoon Auto on so many more episodes before I get some kind of dragon slap.
I don't mind talking about Panzer Dragoon Auto.
So initially, I just made a list of like random games that I like. Not just, I mean, I'm just going to go through these by name. Not going to talk about these, basically. Probably, I might mention the thing.
Games of your youth.
But like, so from the top, I was just like, okay, Rocket League, Breath of the Wild, TF2, Factorio, get them out of the way. Don't need to talk about them at all.
Breath of the Wild, TF2, and Factorio. Are they your top games? Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not going to rank those.
No, you don't have to.
Yeah, let's rank those.
Well, you can split them into multiplayer with Rocket League and Tier 2.
Yeah, the classic technique.
Yeah, and then a single player experience of
But
Breath of the Wild
then I
and
moved.
Factorio.
Then I moved into like, okay, now there's a couple of ones that are like series that I couldn't pick a specific game out of, like Smash and Advance Wars
Yeah.
and Golden Sun. Not that's much of a series. And XCOM, also not much of a series.
You can't
Well,
really.
I reckon-
Do you think the original XCOM is like that? I mean, I guess they're all
The original
good,
XCOM is,
but
I mean,
is
the
good.
original, I mean,
Yeah,
is pretty great.
yeah,
It's
but
Bloody
it's quite-
esoteric, but it's pretty good.
I think you could pick between that and Enemy Unknown. You know, they're,
That's what I was talking about, though.
they're different enough that you
it's
could.
all about Terror from the Deep. What are you talking about? Anyway,
No,
sorry.
it's not. Terror from the Deep was even more ridiculous than the original game was.
Okay, fine.
And then beyond that, I was just like, okay, let's just go through a few other ones. Dwarf Fortress, FTL, Subnautica, Into the Breach, KSB, Space Game, Terraria, Super Meat Boy, Planet Coaster, Rogue Legacy, Transistor, Alpha Centauri.
You go too fast, man.
Yeah, well, those
can't
are the ones I'm not going to talk
Process
about.
it.
That's the
Oh,
point.
okay. Okay, fine.
Rogue Lister? What was that?
Rogue Legacy
Oh, and Resistor.
and
Right.
Transistor.
Transistor, yeah.
Do you really like Transistor that much?
Yeah, it was great.
I mean, you had
Ah.
multiple playthroughs.
Yeah,
didn't you?
I finished that game real good.
I've finished the shit out of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
I gotta admit, the
is it that
recursion
much
thing
better than
wasn't-
Bastion? I guess.
Well, I didn't play Bastion, so I mean that's why this is my list. Obviously.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's your Supergiant game.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And
I wonder if that's a trick. The first Supergiant game you play is your Supergiant. game.
maybe. So yeah, I mean, oh yeah. So obviously that list of games is obviously all great, but then the ones that I actually came up with shit to talk about, I then started getting into making up weird categories for them.
Okay.
So the
Best audio thing.
yeah, the first category I came up with was games that need a sequel, but not that one. Games that need a sequel, but not the sequel they actually made.
But they actually made.
Oh,
Right.
that's
Okay.
brilliant. I like that.
So the first one on this list is obviously Battlefield 2142.
Right.
Not that I'm saying Battlefield 3 and 4 weren't good.
Yeah, they haven't strictly made I would argue, yeah, they haven't actually made a sequel to 2142.
No, they
I
haven't.
feel like the closest you're going to get is Titanfall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it's still not quite the same.
not
thing.
Battlefield.
Yeah,
because goddamn it, 2142 was like
24
probably the best Battlefield.
It was one of the best. I mean, it had out of all the Battlefields, it felt the most balanced.
Yeah.
A lot. Like
And
the
really,
weapon
like-
variety was really interesting.
Yeah, it was like balanced and also had weapon variety. It
Yeah.
was like each team actually had a full set of distinct weapons that were balanced, and then all the unlocks.
I think people just remember the mode with the big motherships and don't concentrate.
Titan.
The Titan mode.
Yeah, which
Titan.
had
Yeah.
problems because the tech wasn't quite there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
The
a
servers
cool
had to
idea.
be set to Titans cannot move, or otherwise it just got real fucked up.
Yeah. Which is a shame, yeah, because it's an interesting idea, and of course, although it had the problem that a lot of Battlefield games do, that Titan maps would, because the Titans were always the same shape, like you could end up with a fight in the same area on the Titan
Yeah.
every game.
And like, it wasn't even a very interesting fight at the time. Usually,
It's
it
a
was
corridor.
like a hella corridor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's like,
so
it doesn't matter how amazing and epic the map is if you're just fighting in the same corridor every time.
Yeah, so it had issues like that. I mean, it could have been like mitigated by having different Titan designs, or like for each level. Or
Titans could have just been bigger, and that might have helped. More corridors.
I wouldn't say bigger, just maybe a more intricate, interesting design. Less long corridors.
Well, certainly. Less really obvious checkpoints.
And I wouldn't even say Battlefield 3 was a bad sequel. In fairness,
No.
it's probably my favourite of the
Modern
modern
Battlefields.
Battlefields. And it's just been downhill since then. Although 1 was okay. But it didn't quite. We probably played that more, maybe.
I don't know.
Like, yeah.
It must have been pretty close to being
So
at least
did
as long.
I know Battlefield 2 did have the squad stuff, but like what
Yeah.
did 2142? Did the spawning on the squad, was that better in 2142? I can't remember.
2142 had more options because it had
you
the
had the-
spawn beacons.
Yeah,
as
spawn
well
beacons,
as spawning
that's
on
right.
people.
The beacons were hilarious.
Yeah. Did they get rid of that later, spawn beacons? Or?
Put them on top of buildings.
Well, the trouble was that they kept the spawn beacons in like Battlefield 3, but now it's just a weird radio antenna that you just spawn at.
Right, that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
In the
yeah, because you actually dropped, didn't you?
Yeah, you literally dropped, and that was sort of a balance thing because you could see the pods coming down, so you knew where the spawn beacons were. It's like that kind of helped balance it.
Man, yeah. And the more I think about that game, the more cool it was. I wish the mechs were slightly more entertaining to fight when you're on foot, though.
Because they were directly under them and shooting the vent.
Yeah, but they were still really hardy.
Hilarious.
They were still crazy hardy.
Yes.
Like, you know, Battlefield, that's normally where I think Battlefield gets its balance slightly wrong, is like, I don't know.
On foot versus vehicles.
Yeah, because if, like, you have to be the right class on foot to have to be able to do anything against a vehicle.
Yeah.
Whereas, a vehicle actually going up against the right class of infantry can be a pain in the ass. Like, it never feels. I mean, that's exactly. I guess that's how it's supposed to feel. I mean, but it's irritating in both directions.
That was kind of another one of the things that was quite well balanced about 2142 is they actually did a reasonably good job of, even on the more open maps, still putting like infantry zones in, where it's just like you couldn't really get a vehicle into it.
And even in some places, the fixed turrets were viable.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a very well made thing that just kind of, I wouldn't say flew totally under the radar, but it just didn't hit the popularity.
Which was weird because, like, at the time, I guess it was slightly before everyone really started being like, no more fucking World War II, goddamn.
Yeah.
But like, for the first one of that sort of age of that, the people didn't care very much for some reason.
It had a weird, I want to say it had a weird Starship Troopers aesthetic about it as well.
A little
that
bit,
sort of like,
but not in a comedy way, obviously.
Not in a comedy way, not in a future cool way. Kind of in a future. Oh,
real.
This might actually
like
be
a real future.
Yeah, this might actually be how it pans out, kind of way, like chunky stuff, chunky military-looking stuff.
Yeah,
rather than
and climate
neons.
change also,
and climate change. Yeah,
yeah.
Because it's like if you like, I guess they kind of still kept that in Battlefield 4, kind of, with their weird weather. Everything's fucked.
Oh, sure.
The climate change angle.
The Levolution.
Yes. But, like, if they just made a 2142 or 2143 instead of Battlefield 4, like the Battlefield 4 tech with 2142's world, that would have been great.
Was it one of the PGA Tour games that let you play on that Battlefield 4?
Yeah, it was the whatever Tiger Woods game came out around that time. They had the weird, like the one hole of a course that was playing off the deck of that destroyed aircraft carrier onto that island. It was funny. Crossovers. So anyway, that was 2142. A better sequel than most of the other sequels, Battlefield games that came afterwards.
It was a heck of a thing. I mean,
do you remember the in-game advertisements on that?
Yeah,
yeah. Lots of Intel ads. It was always Intel, right? I don't think I saw anything else.
Because they only probably sold like one set of those ads.
I've never been actually against the idea of like having adverts
when it makes sense.
In games like
Even
that.
though it kind of doesn't really make sense in a near future. But make excuses.
Well, have your if you're going to do that in a game and it's popular enough that you can, I think this might be the thing. You'll have to add it late after the fact, right? Which is going to annoy your player base probably.
Yeah.
But if you do that and your game's popular enough that your marketing team could, in-worldify the graphics of the ads a little.
What you mean, like they did for fucking Fifth Element?
A little bit, yeah.
Whatever that game's called. New York Race.
New York Race, yeah.
Weird future Rolexes.
Then and cars.
And cars.
Then maybe that would be totally acceptable.
Maybe.
A bit more pressure on your art team.
Yeah. That's quite a lot of effort.
I don't know, is it? Like, if it's just a billboard.
Yeah, but you have to invent a concept for a future version of the product you're trying to advertise. It's it's not just like you're just making a weird bit of art.
Maybe you don't have to do it for future products necessarily, but you could
future company logos.
Or slightly stylize the ad so it fits into the world.
I'm sure that wouldn't be a very worthwhile ad to the people you're trying to sell it to.
No, maybe not. Maybe that's the problem. But I don't know, if it was an EA game and they tried to advertise other EA games in a weird way, I'd be totally okay with that.
So anyway,
I mean that sometimes happens, right? You sometimes was it Apex or something that had like some of its billboards would occasionally show ads for something else.
I mean that makes sense.
I'm sure I've seen like things like that where it's just done like, well, I suppose Rocket League does it occasionally, but usually for its own events. Yeah. And I'm sure I've like been in a game and there's just been a huge billboard that's been advertising some esports competition for a different game.
Maybe.
Like, yeah.
So the second one on this list, slightly less enthusiasm about it, maybe, is Monday Night Combat, obviously.
Oh boy, yes.
Because don't want the sequel they made to that.
No, I mean, I dabbled in Super Monday Night Combat, and it's not the same game.
No,
but it wasn't for a shooter-ish MOBA. It was all right.
But the first one was a better shooter-ish MOBA.
This is true.
That was. I mean, again, I would say the same thing about 1242 in some ways, but like for a weird off-spin shooter thing, they somehow created a fairly good world, and the Monday Night Combat world is weirdly funny in its construction. Slightly. Like the whole idea of like what in Call of Duty is like perks are your corporate sponsorships, and they give you little buffs.
Yeah.
It's like that was great.
That system was really good, and the fact that it's just like sponsored hot dogs and churros about the place,
and everything is like, you get the juice, and then the Moneyball guy comes out and you shoot shit out of him.
Yeah.
It was just like, it was a funny little like weird corporate deathmatch world
and
they created.
The weird chicken.
Yeah,
what's the chicken about?
That came later with that like the one DLC map they did.
Yeah. I can't remember what the chicken was about.
Well, you still shot him and money came out. It was basically the same as
it's just a chicken.
But then you get the juice, and then you shoot the guys. And it had the cool but also weird system where taunts actually mattered. Like if you taunted after you kill someone, you get more cash.
Yeah.
Which kind of takes away from the point of it being a taunt, but also,
it was funny. Cool. Yeah, it gave you a reason to use them in fight rather than
and like it then made it like a risk versus reward.
Yeah.
Like you lock yourself into this taunt animation, but you're going to get more cash.
Whereas most like, I don't know, the closest thing you can get is like a finisher, right? And I think Apex has finishers and stuff like that, but they are just there to be cool. You don't gain from them, and it's like I think Night Combat had some really fantastic ideas. I think where it fell down a little bit on I mean, I guess I don't know how else they would have done it, but it's like when the Moneyball shield came down and all you're really doing is firing at it.
I mean, it's sort of that is like, there was really only Dota around before this, of course, because this is hella old, but like that is just like the MOBA problem, isn't it? Like the towers and the thing at the end that you have to blow up. By the time you're blowing the thing up at the end, you've basically already won. It's very rare that there's ever any kind of actual comebacks at that point. So there's the same problem with the Moneyball. Once the shield goes down, you'll just stand there and shoot it for a minute or two. It's not really anything that either side can do at that point. So yeah, that's Monday Night Combat.
No, it's just so good. I mean, the class makeup was
also
brilliantly balanced.
Yep, it's pretty great for a TF2-esque setup.
It was one of the few games where I really didn't mind playing as the stealth class either.
I never got the hang of it, but
I wasn't good, but it was still kind of enjoyable. Yeah, right, and that happens to me so rarely.
Because I just played engineer, that Italian guy. He was Italian for some reason, of course, because that's what you do with random character archetypes.
I can't remember who I played the most of that. It's probably just the regular guy, the normal assault dude.
The assault grenade launcher dude.
Yeah.
Who was kind of like the demo.
But I think I played as the heavy quite a lot. The guy in the mech suit.
Hawaiian. I'm pretty sure he was Hawaiian, right?
I don't know. I can't. I remember not as much of that game as I should. And you can't really play it now unless you set up a LAN.
Or you could play the wave defense mode.
Oh yeah, they added that, didn't they?
That's Monday Night Combat.
I might do that actually.
Yeah, well, we should make a video.
Yeah, just remind myself what it looks like.
Next on this list for games that should have a sequel but not the one they made, SimCity 4.
Oh right, okay, yeah. I mean,
because City Skylines is good, but it just doesn't feel as well made as a Maxis SimCity game. I don't know why. It's just like it just doesn't feel as well polished and like high quality as the Maxis SimCity games used to.
SimCity 4 is crazy. How did they make that at the time? It's so detailed, and I don't know.
Well, it's all like bitmaps or whatever, isn't it? It's
I know.
But they got around the problem of not even early, mid 3D graphics by
not doing
skipping that.
Yeah. But still, the simulation is not bad in 4. It's okay.
Yeah, for being almost entirely estimated and statistical.
Yeah.
Still
they
just
tried to get away from.
That's the way to do it, though.
Yeah. I guess. I really appreciated what they tried to do with modern SimCity, having.
But City Skylines still does that better. Just
it uses it in the places where it makes more sense, right? And then uses stats for the rest of it. It's kind of a hybrid of the two models.
Well,
right?
yeah, I guess kind of. And obviously, the thing about City Skylines is at a certain point, stuff does just disappear. Traffic, if your traffic sits still for too long, it just starts vanishing, and it's those people didn't get where they go, so they get a negative bonus to happiness or whatever. It doesn't actually truly simulate the whole.
Right, I suppose that is some way of mitigating. It's blocked forever. Basically,
because theoretically you could just have a gridlock that you would be impossible to get out of because you can't actually do anything about it.
And then maybe in itself that's kind of a thing where you could potentially do something about it.
Well, that's why there's mods.
Yeah,
you can turn on traffic doesn't disappear and then get real screwed.
Yeah, but then then it's up to you to actually be okay, how do I fix this problem? How do I direct the traffic out of the issue?
Yeah. And that's why there's all those traffic mods for Skylines as well, with all their little lane assigning and whatnot.
And it could be a thing, but I could also see it becoming busy work.
Sure, that was why it was a balance in SimCity 5 between the detail of the simulation and still being a game. But then they hamstrung themselves so badly with the detail of the simulation, fucking up the size of the map, that it just it turned into barely a game.
Right, yeah.
And it did have some good ideas, the modular buildings was a fucking genius idea.
Talk to me about the modular buildings.
With the idea that you could just place a base fire station for cheap, and then add extra fire engine bays or extra radio towers or whatever onto it later.
That's
to
kind of cool.
Improve its usefulness.
Except though that sort of system can be mildly annoying because of having to demolish space around it.
Yeah, but that was the whole point. You didn't have to. In theory, for some of the upgrades, obviously some of them you did still have to sort of account for the future space, extra fire engine bays or whatever. But you could make a better version of that system that did because really you could easily do it where the lowest tier of fire station just has a big garden around it, an empty lot around it essentially. You reserve the space ahead of time for the future upgrades.
True.
It was a good idea. It just was in a not great game.
Like I said, I don't think many of the ideas in that game were actually bad.
No,
they just didn't execute.
No, and then Maxis died.
As a result, which is super sad, really.
Yep. And speaking of,
but then all those devs went off and did other things, and that's why we've sort of ended up with the indie management revival in a way.
I guess
SimCity's demise might be why we've got games it's almost certainly why we've got Skylines. And
that wasn't anything to do with Maxis though. That was just they capitalized on the the demise of Maxis.
They did, but that's why it's stuck around and why it's still a thing.
Yeah.
And also I don't know, 2 Point Hospital, right? And those sorts of things. It's they might not have come about without the demise of Maxis. It's a weird state to be in.
And then the last one for this segment, Paper Mario.
What? Super Paper Mario? Oh no, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door.
Anything after the second one, forget all those. Make a better sequel.
Did anyone play the first one?
I haven't, no.
I played a part of it, but I never got... The trouble is, because it's an N64 game, it's quite jank.
I don't think... Yeah, Thousand Year Door is not going to be repeated, is it? No, yeah.
It's a flash in the pan.
It should be. Especially now that Mario and Luigi is fucking dead as well because of Alpha Dream dying.
There's a huge gap now in that style of game, and the thing is I don't know if there's really it works because it's Mario primarily, right? If someone else tried to sneak in on the papercraft RPG, then but it wasn't tied to the fact that it was Mario, right? It works because it's a twist on something really well known. you couldn't just like come out with a brand new IP that was that now, right, and it be as good. Because most of the game's humor was a play on Mario.
Well,
yeah,
I guess. Although I don't know if it was necessarily that much of a direct play on Mario.
Remember those birds in the trees who were like,
yes,
what, joking about wireless networking or something?
Fat pipes.
But
it wasn't really a direct joke on Mario. It was just like everything about the entire game was subtly not a Mario universe.
Yeah.
Like, why is this town all shitty and run down and has a noose in the town centre and and the mafia, and it's just like it wasn't like super specific jokes about Mario things. I mean, I guess fucking Bowser was kind of the one big like joke about the Mario universe, as he often is, where it's just
was pretty
he's
weird
not the actual
having
villain.
The Princess Peach sections were quite strange. Like the implication of what was going on with Princess Peach was quite weird.
I mean, it made sense that she actually would try and do something for a change. I mean, that was the subversion, the more broad subversion of like Princess Peach actually does anything at all.
Yeah, that's true.
She has a plan of some kind. So yeah, I mean, like, now that Mario and Luigi is fucked, we can have a Paper Mario RPG again, right? Because that was the whole reason that they stopped doing them like that, they said, where it's like, we don't want 2 Mario RPGs, so we'll just keep Mario and Luigi, and Paper Mario can become all these other weird crap, like card-based battle, whatever the fuck they did. But now Mario and Luigi's gone, back to RPGs, surely. We can only hope.
That's probably one of the best like light RPGs.
Yeah. And
probably better than Pokemon, like, to be fair. I mean,
nice mechanics, like the stylish thing was cool.
Yeah.
Like the whole mechanic of the crowd was just like, that's an ingenious idea.
Yeah. Was that new, or was that from Mario and Luigi?
I think that was actually new. I think in Paper Mario 1 you just get generic battle scenes. I think. I don't really remember it that well, the little bit of that I did play. But yeah.
I remember like Yoshi in the fighting tournament. Not Yoshi. What was his name?
Which one? The main boss.
You got different colours, didn't you?
Yeah. What, the Yoshi that you had?
Yeah. And you meet him at the like wrestling arena.
Yes, at the wrestling tournament.
Yeah.
Hilarious. And the colours were like based on what name you gave him.
That's
for some
right.
Reason.
Yeah.
Weird. But yeah. Rob has apparently had to go take a phone call, which is why he's not saying anything right now.
I see. Yeah, agreed.
So anyway, that's the end of that first section of
games that deserve proper sequels and got sequels, but not the ones we wanted.
Yep. So that's the end of that. So now we've got
Deus Ex. Sorry.
Sure, yeah. Kind of,
yeah.
Now we've got the section that I've just called mechanics that were great. Like games that had cool mechanics that like didn't really get enough play after the game they were in. I don't think. Although
Copy
maybe,
this.
Maybe I didn't play all games ever. So the first one on this list was World in Conflict, basically.
Right.
How World in Conflict did RTSs.
Its requisition systems.
Yeah, the reinforcement points and tactical aid. And getting rid of base building in an RTS. It's like,
did that come from ground control, or did it, or was it brand new?
Probably I mean, it was probably based on some of those ideas.
Yeah, I don't know if I've never played ground control, so I don't.
I think I did once, but as a full top-down RTS style, I'm not sure it had done that way before. Oh, and there was it must have been before. They did those Warhammer games.
The Relic Warhammer games.
Yeah, the early Relic Warhammer games. They had sort of a similar. They still had a little bit of base building though, I think.
Dawn of War and Dawn of War 2. Yeah, they had
They're pretty good. They did have base building.
Company of Heroes as well.
Yeah, Company of Heroes is more that way. Although it gets base building eventually, but not for quite a long time in the campaign. But it doesn't have the same mechanics as World in Conflict, that's for sure.
But yeah, the World in Conflict. And also, I mean,
they made it for a really interesting multiplayer, right?
Yeah, that was its big advantage, was make multiplayer sort of bearable, I guess, in an RTS.
Because I loved you could actually just focus down on what your squad was up to, right? Because your squad wouldn't be huge.
Yeah, well, limited by how many units you could have.
Yeah, it could be a reasonable size because you might still be splitting your ground and air troops, but you were rolled, right? So I'm the Air Force guy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be trying to move my choppers where it makes sense, or I'm the tank guy, or I'm the sneaky infantry guy.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to fill the roles, and man, that was a smart ass game.
And also less of the mechanics, but just like the whole tactical aid system, which was a mechanic, but also real cool. It was a great idea for just like an RTS game where, I mean, arguably you could just say this whole game is just another MOBA. You're like managing the lane of units, and then you're getting your skills that you just hit every few seconds.
I mean, sort of, yeah. It doesn't have the creep, but the skills that you got every few seconds, it's like that was a currency, right? The tactical aid. So like you could pop a nuke if you wanted to.
Eventually.
Yeah.
The nukes were, and also the nukes were just cool, but like that was their thing. It was just like they were just cool. They were so completely useless and like way too expensive to actually be worthwhile saving up that many tactical aid points. But it was basically just a taunt. Yeah. You were like, we're winning this so much, I'm going to launch a nuke because I don't even need these tactical aid points for real actual use.
And it would mess up an area of the map for a while.
Not for very long though. Not as long as you'd hope for as much money as you spend on that. But yeah, the whole tactical aid system, and also, I mean, the way each type of unit had two skills, like an offense skill and a defense skill, that were put on like Q and E on your keyboard, so you can, as you selected different units, you had all those little different options. Mostly just smoke on defense, obviously, but the offensive ones were kind of interesting. The one that I exploited using medium anti-air that could, for a short period, shoot at ground. Because that always surprised people.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck them right up.
Or constant shouting of the word heat.
Yep, heat out of the heavy tanks. So yeah, that was a pretty cool RTS game mechanic.
I mean, they had a pretty great campaign as well.
Yep.
As, the whole everything actually did go wrong. Like midpoint of the game is kind of neat.
The flashback was maybe a bit much. But I mean, it gave you an opportunity to do some slightly different things, have some different units in France. So then the next on the list of cool mechanics that people should have done more stuff was Left 4 Dead. The whole concept of the director. Not enough games have really done that concept again. And my example that I thought of that would have been fucking amazing is you take the whole concept of the director and like having a level that like shunts you down different routes and spawns different enemies. Put that in Titanfall. Have you be like a group of pilots who has to go and do an objective, but it's like a randomly set up route and the grunts spawn differently every time, and like maybe an enemy Titan shows up like a tank would in Left 4 Dead or whatever. Just put that in Titanfall. That would have been fucking amazing.
I mean, that's sort of what the horde modes in those games sort of are to some extent. You can't they randomize the wave coming at you.
Sure, but it's still a horde, like a defensive thing, not really like a moving forwards.
Yeah.
The director was a cool idea, but like I feel like that could have had more games based on that whole system.
They've tried to. It's not really director related. This is a slightly different offshoot. But I haven't played it yet, but there's something objective-y in Apex now. In Apex Legends, like there's an objective you can do to win, as well as on. I think you might have to turn it on in one of the modes or something, but like you can do the objective instead of being first to win or last remaining. Sorry, which is kind of interesting.
Kind of. Although that might be weird with the ring or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how. I honestly know little about it. I just noticed it on screen when they were doing Mirage's Hollow Day thing at the Game Awards, and it's just like, oh, maybe some of this objective-based stuff is coming back. Maybe, but still, not the director. The director should really, or just more randomized elements about not just the enemies that spawn, but the environment itself.
Yeah.
That should totally be more of a thing. Like, because what's the closest thing we get? Is it's procedurally generated dungeons in
like Diablo-esque games, maybe.
Or Enter the Gungeon, or Isaac, or Rogue Legacy to some degree. It's like in it, but it's not quite the same, is it? There's something about how the director did it that was And admittedly, that was probably better in the first game than in the second, actually, because the second game I felt like they just ramped up things like the Horde and stuff like that. When those occurred, to the point where it was just like
a little too much.
Yeah,
a little too constant.
Yeah, you could be like, or you could became a bit predictable, right? It would be like, okay, it's been far too long. It's going to happen any second now. Oh, and there it is.
Well, it was always kind of predictable, but like, I feel like they definitely let you go a bit longer without anything happening in Left 4 Dead 1.
Yeah.
Where you could just like wander around and look for crap, pick up the med kits or whatever.
Yeah, and still, feel like the Horde felt like an event, as opposed to, or it felt like more of an event as opposed to just being the thing you deal with.
And also maybe in Left 4 Dead 2, it was like they had a lot more instances of just like generic pressure on everything in the level, like the hurricane and whatnot, and like there's that bit where you set off the alarms and you have to run through the fence maze on the decontamination site.
Oh,
it's just
sure.
like there's a lot more instances of that where it's just like more intense, rather in Left 4 Dead where it's just like the intensity just sort of happened naturally from the hordes occurring and like then the occasional special or the tank.
Yeah, I kind of want it to. The thing I think I wanted from those games that never really occurred. I mean, it occurred a little bit in the early days of the first game. Is unwittingly making mistakes, right? I want players to be able to.
That's a very difficult thing, though.
Yeah,
you only get that once.
It's super hard,
and then
but
you learn.
or the director has the ability to put things in specific ways that it's really hard to see them, or something, or then you do a thing and it like makes it worse. And it's like, okay, the cars were kind of in that direction, right, to some degree, where setting off a car alarm would be a problem. Yeah. I kind of want more of those, more accidents, right? The accidents are what make that interesting.
What if you went like super hardcore? I don't know if it would be like that great because it might actually start pissing people off. But what if you went all the way with the director, where like make it so that it would be possible for when it shunts you down a different route, make it so you can go partially down that route, and then it just blocks it entirely off, and you have to backtrack.
Oh, brutal! Yeah.
Make it like so even if you know the level, it's a chance that you think you're going down one route, but you're totally not, because you're then going to have to go all the way back.
Or, all right, this could be wild. What if the game was built a bit like Outrun, and that it's just one map, but the route can split in like a billion different ways?
That's difficult to constrain a level, though. Is sort of the problem with that when you're in first.
Well, it could be a level with a level with multiple exits, right? And then but the different exits take you to different next stages. So instead of having like the campaigns, it's like you'll go through about 4 or 5 levels, but because they're branching all the time.
Yeah, but now you're getting into like COD zombies almost, where like you have to do very specific things to go a very specific route.
Maybe, but the director could pick, is what I mean.
Yeah, I guess.
It's like so what you could. There might be routes that you may not see for a really long time, or there might be like just a super rare secret thing that could happen occasionally, like a stupid reload in Battlefield Hardline. I kind of want it to be able to surprise you more.
Yeah. Surprise is difficult.
And let's not forget, there is one of these in development right now.
Theoretically.
Yeah.
So they keep saying.
Not a Left 4 Dead, though. I forget what it's called. It's a bad name, but it's got a 4 in it.
Yes.
Not as good as the Left 4 Dead. That's a great name. But yeah. Nope, can't remember.
And I know I keep saying it, like, every time I think about Left 4 Dead, it's just like, I want to go play it, but you just can't. It's not possible to get 4 people together in a game any longer. And playing it at randoms is only...
No, playing it with randoms didn't work at all.
Not that great.
No.
Sometimes it's okay, but not that often.
No, that was no fun to me, having a rando in the game.
And then the last one for mechanics that were great that should have been used more. Except this one isn't really true, I guess, is the destruction in Red Faction Guerrilla. Basing a game around the destruction was really the sort of, because it's not like there hasn't been destructible scenery in lots of other games since then. Like you just look at a video of Battlefield 5 and you'll see all those houses getting fucked up and all that stuff. But like making it the whole game mechanic was kind of the trick to Red Faction Guerrilla somehow.
Yeah, this who cares attitude. Kind of. I mean,
could you get creative with it particularly, or a bit?
Well, the trouble with it in Guerrilla was like the different ways to destroy buildings kind of unlocked too far apart, I guess, because you did a lot of work with the clip-on mine things, whatever those were called.
I guess Just Cause is like the closest, right?
Yeah, Just Cause is kind of the same, but like
it's not about the destruction primarily.
Yeah,
I mean, you've got the red stuff to destroy, but
but they're all just like a thing you shoot and then it blows up. It's not like you have to actually take down this building in a specific way. That was the trick of Red Faction, I guess.
Or that it's mildly awkward to take them down. I mean, yeah, Red Faction, you could be in a situation where it's like, I haven't actually got any explosives right now. I've got my hammer still.
Yep.
So
just start whacking.
I could mush through this wall, and then I could get inside and do the thing I needed to do in there, and hope there's some explosives inside. And yeah, there was. I mean, it gave you the tools to just tackle most things in lots of different. Because I suppose Guerrilla had the slight problem that you'd often be in the same area quite a lot.
Well, and everything was quite similar until quite late in the game.
Yeah.
Once you got to the high class area,
it was a little bit cookie cutter in places.
Yeah.
Right? But it sort of meant that it's like, oh, hey, I've got different equipment right now compared to what you did
but
last
not enough
time.
Different equipment. That was kind of the trouble. Like, it took so long after you get the debt charges right at the start, and then like the next thing that really takes down buildings is like the nano rifle, and that's practically at the end of the game. Or the thermobaric rockets, but that's way too expensive to be firing those around all over the place.
But that's why they put the destruction mode in.
Well, yeah, it's a different game mode.
Yeah, to just let you run riot with the ridiculous guns. Or was it? Didn't they have like you had an ammo limit, like a really?
Yeah, they did. There was different versions of that destruction game mode where it's just like a time limit or like a very limited pool of ammo that you had to use to cause as much damage as possible. It was pretty cool. But then like. Now destructive scenery is just for cosmetics mostly. Not actually a game mechanic any longer. It's just sort of expected, I guess.
I mean, Crackdown tried.
Kind of.
And mostly failed.
And then the last category I came up with, which is a much shorter one, is just games that you wish you could play for the first time again, which is basically all the puzzle games.
Breath of the Wild.
Just The Witness, Antichamber, Infinite Factory, and Fez. It's just like pretty much all of those have like amazing puzzle stuff, but it's just like you can't go back.
Oh, I see.
Maybe sort of can for Antichamber because that's like weird enough that it's still because the puzzles in that aren't so much like set. It's not like The Witness where it's like a set puzzle. Antichamber is a more environmental thing. And it's sort of easier to forget parts of it.
There's a certain element. Like I can't say I remember all of the mechanics in The Witness anymore.
I'm sure you would, though, as soon as you started playing it.
Maybe.
Like, you'd look at the screen, you'd see the symbol, you'd be like, oh yeah, I remember what I have to do, even if I don't remember the solution to this puzzle. But that gets me quite a lot of the way there.
Or at the very least, you'd hopefully stumble upon the clue.
Well,
because that's what you're supposed to do, right?
I guess that is sort of the other thing that would help with going back to The Witness is like you're never going to forget how that game functions in general, sort of thing. Like if you find the tutorial at the start of an area that tells you how that like leads you into how that puzzle mechanic works, then you learn what that symbol means. Like you're not going to forget that, even if you forget a specific mechanic. You're still going to know to look for that kind of thing.
Yeah, you're never going to have The Witness's Eureka moment.
Well, no, you're not going to have the cool environmental puzzle thing.
Yeah.
Although possibly that might... Arguably, you could say that The Witness has basically boned that for every game ever.
I mean, maybe,
you're never going to be surprised by something like that again, because you'll kind of be like... As soon as there's any hint of a certain shape, you'll be like, oh, wait.
It's sort of a shame that The Witness... outside of its secret ending doesn't do more with kind of what the secret ending implies, right? That eventually everything is a puzzle.
Yeah.
It's a sort of a shame that it doesn't roll with that a little bit more, and that it is just that secret ending that plays with that a little bit. It's like I'm seeing it everywhere.
In an FMV. Yeah. I don't know. And then Fez, obviously.
Man, so I'm angry at the world about Fez.
And we only got like partially spoiled on Fez even.
I mean, we did pretty good. I mean, we came at it late.
Yeah.
But there was only there were very few details that we knew going into it, and wow, what a ridiculously great experience that is to try and figure that stuff out. But man, I'm bummed about it now because it's like there were going to be more Fez.
This goes back to the first category of games that should have had a sequel, except this one didn't have a sequel.
This one didn't, yeah, because of the community and the creator not getting on. I forget exactly what the circumstances were. I think there were asshats on both sides of this, but it caused him, the creator of Fez, to effectively bail from video games completely.
I don't know if it was necessarily...
it just did him so much stress.
Yeah, I don't know if it was necessarily like a specific thing that happened. I think it was just like a build-up over time of like... Because, I mean, it's like every goddamn internet community eventually will just build up that kind of pressure after a certain period of time.
I mean, there must have been that pressure before Fez even came out, because we knew about it a long time before it came out.
It is it's sort of an unknown at that point, though. And that's sort of an internal pressure. It's like when they did that documentary about Meat Boy or whatever. And it was like, it's an internal pressure at that point. Because you're like, people don't know that this game is going to be fucking amazing or whatever.
Yeah, because that documentary was before Fez came out, right? And it was following his convention pressure.
Yeah.
And like the ability, the last minute build for packs or something, and it didn't work. It was crashing on the stand, and it's like, and how much
that's a more internal pressure rather than an external pressure of like wanting a sequel and various other things pissing people off about things about.
I mean, there was only like other than Disaster Piece, there were. Oh, I think him and his co-programmer fell out at one point as well.
I think so.
It didn't happen because they had to design their whole game engine from scratch.
Which is why it then took ages to port as well, which is one of the things that the community gradually got more annoyed about.
Yeah. But hey, what a ridiculous game that is. That is up there, like in my pantheon of games. It's like it's a ridiculously good thing.
Yeah,
and it's one of my favorite soundtracks to a video game ever.
Yep, it's great.
Like Disaster Piece is just amazing.
I probably will eventually play Fez again, even though I remember a lot of it because
that's the problem.
Well, I have it on my Steam.
I mean, we could.
It's like I actually have it. I guess
we should do a video of that, like first hour, something like that, or maybe just do the whole thing. It's been long enough.
Maybe just go for it.
Yeah.
And then the last one that I mentioned was Infinite Factory, but that's like it's slightly different for Infinite Factory because of when I played it. Because I played it in the early access that's not really early access because that's what he does with his games. Where it's like they go into early access, but they're basically done. It's more like a real early access, like an actual beta or whatever. Actually used it for testing. But I played through it. And, I was the 23rd person to play for it, apparently, as my badge proclaims.
Oh, yeah.
But
there's a photo on the site, actually. So.
Yeah. But when I got through the campaign, that's not actually the whole campaign. That's the thing. At that point in the early access, that's where the campaign ends. When you're working for the overlords, the aliens, and then at the end, when you go to your last performance review, a bomb appears and blows them up, and you fall out of the ship, and then the humans pick you up. And it's like, that's just where the game ends originally. Well, you wake up in the human base and you can talk to them for a minute, and then that acts as like the puzzle builder world, essentially.
Oh, right, yeah.
So you could go in there and build user puzzles. And that's where it ended originally, which was great. But then, and still quite a like dramatic twist even, I guess. But then once
for a puzzle game.
Yeah. But then once you put in the whole second campaign, the Resistance campaign, and the puzzle mechanics start getting even more ridiculous. And then it also has its own story of like trying to escape the overlords and get back to Earth and all that stuff. It's like, this is even better. But then the fact that I played it and basically stopped and then came back to it is like, it slightly messed up the awesomeness of those reveals of it coming in parts.
Right, yeah. Because you were in the zone and then came out of the zone and then had to get back in it.
Yeah.
So. It's safe to say it's probably the most ambitious Zachtronics game.
Sure.
But like, because he hasn't done anything on that scale since, right?
No, not like a 3D actual game. still his 2D quality games are still great.
Opus Magnum and Shenzhen are the two you've done, haven't they?
Yeah, and there was a new one that's just come out, which I may get into.
Oh, yeah.
How does he make so many of them?
Well, let's be honest, some of them are quite similar. Like this new one looks quite a lot like another Opus Magnum.
Right.
Another alchemy, another
chemical based, like moving the atoms around type thing.
Mm.
And then Space Game, obviously, pretty much the same idea.
Yeah. The progenitor.
And then whatever it was called, the Flash game, it's some Codex of Alchemical Engineering.
Yeah.
So yeah, he does make the same game several times, essentially. And obviously Shenzhen, there's the prequel to that, TIS 100.
Oh yeah. that was Shenzhen's pretty much the sequel to that. Isn't it?
But they're still all great.
I mean, it to fit the way you think, I suppose, it's changing the puzzle.
Yeah.
Just enough to keep you interested, right?
Yes. Exactly.
It's like it's going from from Factorio to Toma Factory.
Yeah, another one of those games. But it's not like I would play more puzzles in one of those games. Like that was why, like when Space Game did that the journal where they just kept adding more and more puzzles. It was like great. I just keep putting more puzzles in it. It's fine. I'll continue to play that. I even did the DLC in Space Game.
It's a bit like Picross.
Yeah,
just give me more Picross, I'm happy.
Yeah, more puzzles, even though it's the same puzzle.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the end of my list. That's just like those were interesting games and shit that I wanted to talk about and to fill time in the special podcast. Those were the concepts I came up with.
Nicely filled.
I would argue that a lot of that is actually more recent than I was expecting from you. Like,
well, I think
nothing back in the old Atari days.
Well, I think that's what we talked about when we were first talking about making this podcast about older games. It's just like I don't really remember.
Yeah, I realized that I didn't really play many games before 1996.
I guess if I wanted to add just like a couple more to the just names of cool games, it was like I guess there was Hostile Waters, there was Freelancer.
Oh yeah,
there was. Yeah,
there was Freelancer. Oh man, can we talk about how they should make a Freelancer sequel?
I guess,
or not a sequel, but like a spiritual sequel. Because that seems like the perfect framework for a game. I just wonder what it would be if you compare that. Like, how much would it have to be like, Elite Dangerous, or like how much would it have to be?
Well, like, I mean, it's X3, isn't it? It's like the X games are basically like the sort of Freelancer upgraded to more, not exactly modern, but
they have zero personality at all. Those
games.
I
know that's the trouble with those.
That's the thing about Freelancer is it had a lot of personality and it had these kind of weird, like the concept. I quite like the stupid idea of the colony ships, and then they set up their own sort of, based on the continents of Earth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Space England and Space Germany and Space America. That was kind of cool.
Or was it Space Japan?
The thing that you couldn't do, I think, is like you'd have to. Of course, this is really hard. It wouldn't have to be full on. What's it called? What's the stupid game that promised everything and didn't deliver it?
Eve?
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky.
Oh, right, yeah.
Where you fly down to the planet necessarily, but like you couldn't just do that docking ring thing again. I think you'd have to do something.
Yeah,
and
probably.
then the lanes, they make it they make it really obvious that it's just a like really small flat solar system where none of the planets actually move, and it doesn't really. You'd have to do something else in terms of the transiting around the systems.
I mean, I'm not even sure if you would really. I mean, they sort of. Unless you had like random events that mess up the lanes a bit more.
Well, that's what they did, right?
Like, yeah, I know, but like permanently take those lanes out for a while. Or
I think if you wanted to keep the whole concept of lanes, you'd need to make it less obvious that everything was tiny and like you don't have a lane that leads between two planets. Only have lanes that go like out into an asteroid field or whatever.
Well, but then why would you build them? Like that's the thing. You need to solve that problem of I guess for mining. But obviously it doesn't have to be as massive and detailed as not detailed. It doesn't have to be as giant scale as like Eve or.
Well, it's like you just don't want it to be procedural. That's the trick. You don't want it to be No Man's Sky.
Exactly.
where everything is just procedural.
Well, I could do without the planet stuff, right? Just keep everything in space to some degree.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean
Well,
that
it's
works.
not like you
but
did anything on the planet.
well, that's what I mean. Yeah, you would. I think I would like to expand it so you did a little on the planet, maybe, or something, or I don't know. But
even
like,
if it's just somewhere you land, right?
Yeah,
And
that
you
would be
land on
fine.
the planet and just it's a base. Or,
yeah, and a bit more fun to like docking in a space station, not full on Elite Dangerous where it's like hardcore trying to fucking land the thing, but just
So
a
are
little
you saying
bit
you
more.
want Mass Effect but with space combat?
Yeah. Well,
Pretty
if you think about it, Freelancer is not that far off that. It's just like it. Obviously, Mass Effect is way heavier on the RPG elements. You could go a lot lighter.
I wonder if we'll ever find out who owns the stations, though.
But yeah, Freelancer and Mass
They haven't
Effect
done
2 are
study.
not actually that. You could merge those concepts, don't you think? And it would be cool.
My head is now thinking, what if they did a Cowboy Bebop game?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Because in Cowboy Bebop, they have those gates, right, to fly around the solar system, and that is cool. Although they're more like the inter-system gates in what are they called in Freelancer, right?
Yeah,
because they're more like jump gates. Yeah.
Well, neither of us have played Everspace. Aren't those games down this sort of direction?
I have no idea.
Everspace and Everspace 2. Well, Everspace 2's not out yet, but
Well, maybe. But like the other thing about Freelance was just like it was such a weird control scheme. That was one of the things that made it very distinct from all the other space games.
The mouse-based aiming, at the time was kind of new.
And
right?
like the ships and weapons system was kind of nice. It wasn't overly complicated, but it made it slightly interesting. Where you like loot special weapons off secretly hidden wrecked ships and stuff. It was kind of cool.
Yeah,
I don't know what it would take to get me into a space shooter again.
I just don't want the full-on frickin' Star Citizen. I want Freelancer, something a bit, more.
You don't
fun
want to have to like adjust your shield balance or whatever, like like old school Star Wars.
No, I mean that was fine in X-Wing because that was the whole point, and that was all you were doing. It didn't have everything else. But yeah, exactly that. Like obviously,
Well, even Wing Commander, but had was it the tri-state power system, right? Did you want weapons, engines, or shields?
Yeah, but
and you could move it around the triangle.
I mean, I wouldn't mind that. That's not so bad. I haven't seen that in a console game ever.
It just needs to be like medium complexity, not like super sim.
I bet that stuff's in Elite. Right?
Oh,
that
yeah,
stuff must be in Elite, right?
Probably.
And that's a console game. So
but
that might be like 3/4 complexity, not like half. that's slightly edging further up.
It's
the tree.
edging too far and not enough like personality in terms of. They're too procedural in terms of missions. That's the problem.
Don't get me wrong. Elite seems really cool, but and I know a guy who's like super into it on the PlayStation, but
it just seems a bit
because it's one of those games where you have to invest. It's a bit like Eve in that, but just without the subscription. Yeah, you have to invest yourself in it, and progress is slow and meaningful. But
it seems a bit lonely. That's all. Freelancer is not lonely. You're constantly meeting people and different characters and weird stuff and going through. Like, there's no... Yeah, it's much more like Mass Effect, right? Which is not lonely at all, right? You're constantly interacting with people, whereas Elite Dangerous just feels a bit lonely, that's all.
Yeah.
And impersonal, somehow.
I could agree with that.
I guess it's just because Freelancer has a story. I guess that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, you spend basically your entire time playing the story. There's like those occasional bits where it's just like, go out and make some money, but then that's like 2 missions and you're straight back into more
It's
story.
like Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead. Right? You do side missions and then you come back to the main story.
The side missions were where it was procedural, wasn't it really? Because they weren't that interesting.
And they were
like, go shoot some dudes.
No. And you always did the shoot dudes ones because the other ones were just too inconvenient.
Yeah.
The bombing runs and all that, and the mining, like all that.
Yeah.
Just quickly go out, shoot dudes, make the money you need, and then get back into that story.
Get back into it, yeah.
I mean, it had all that cool stuff about the sort of edge of space, the uncharted territory, the wormholes.
Yeah, there was a lot of that game that you didn't actually have to see. Was the trick.
I mean that's what's brilliant, right? You want secrets in a game like this. Like, you want to be able to go slightly outside the bound. You want that Breath of the Wild effect, but maybe not as big as and as complex as Breath of the Wild.
It doesn't have to be that far,
because you don't have you got the slight problem in space that you can't see interesting stuff half the time. But you kind of want something there to draw you in off the beaten path for some reason.
I mean,
and then
Elite's
make
got
it
those
wacky when you
Thargoids
get
or
there.
whatever.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still a thing. You know, once the Thargoids eventually made it into Elite Dangerous, and they can pull you out of hyperspace, and all that's still a thing. Apparently, that's one of the coolest things in Elite Dangerous. They do they have a moment where like you'll be in hyperspace, and you'll get pulled out of it, but it'll be the first time that it's happened to you. But you don't just pull out; like your entire your ship goes dead.
Yeah.
So, in Elite you can look around, and it's like all of your systems are suddenly off, and you're like, oh, what the hell? What's going on? But then it will do the thing where the giant Thargoid mothership will fly slowly from behind and come in front of you before everything lights up on it, and then the situation goes bad, and it's like, okay, yeah, you did something. That's cool.
Yeah.
I can get behind that.
Anyway, yeah, it's true.
But all of that was never in the original game. That's the amazing
No.
thing about Elite. Like, if you want to look at that, send some praise in that game's direction. It's just like everything that Elite is now. It's kind of wasn't that at launch. It's one of those games. It's like all of the the Thargoids weren't in it for ages after it first came out, but they were dropping hints in the universe every now and then, and be like, oh, there's a thing over here that's weird. And it's like what does that do? And then it eventually all led to stuff. It's like they played it well. So I've got respect for them for that. It's a community-driven story, I suppose.
That only works once, though.
Yeah, it only works if you're in it. It wouldn't work for us now.
What was the other game, Zach?
We talked about all of them.
You said Freelancer and something else.
Hostile.
Oh, Hostile.
Oh, Hostile Waters. Oh, well, yeah.
A game that you could argue that I stole as one of my favourite games from Dan.
Well, no, I think you.
Because basically, the way I remember this happening was, Dan got the demo off a PC Gamer disc and showed me it, and then Dan went on holiday, and I went down and bought the game and played it for that whole week he was away.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
That's pretty much how that went.
Yeah. Man, that's a good demo. I mean,
a lot of demos in the old days were good.
That game was an example of a sequel to something, well, a spiritual sequel basically to something that made it a lot better. And like, it's basically Carrier Command, right? Which was impossible to fucking play. I don't know if I never got anywhere in Carrier Command.
But I would have said that's not a thing that anyone did specifically. That was just like the natural progress of games in that age.
Yeah, that's true. I guess
old ideas that were incredibly esoteric and impossible to play at the time was like, now we can just make this a functional game.
Yeah, but it had a great, weird story as well, written by what's his name? Warren Ellis,
Baker,
right?
Wasn't it?
And narrated by Tom Baker. Yeah. I mean, the characters were a bit stiff, like the human characters.
The ones that were literally computer chips.
Yeah. The computer chips had more personality than the actual humans. Yeah, Walker and Church. But yeah, man. The whole thing of like having like a light RTS where you can take control of the vehicles and switch between them. Like, why isn't that more of a thing? I don't know.
Battle Zone.
Yeah. Well, there's another one. Not personally, I prefer Hostile, but
no, Battlezone 1 was far too difficult.
Yeah,
I really struggled with that game. I couldn't get past. I don't think I got past the first bloody mission.
Yeah,
like it was super, super hard. Battlefield 2, I think, Battlezone 2, I think I had a slightly better time with. But I didn't have the full version of that for very long, so I didn't get very far.
Yeah, what would you do?
I know what you mean. It's tricky. Like, I mean, Hostile is still great in concept, but the bit I always like my negativity side with that game is just like, oh, it's all about the cheese in that, right? You get a hover tank and stay out of range with the missile launcher.
Well, the problem was that it had no balance. Like the only viable weapon was the longbow missiles, because otherwise the enemies would outrange you and you'd be fucked.
And the longbow missiles weren't that fun because you were constantly waiting for them to recharge, which isn't a fun mechanic really. Like it was fun firing off a whole volley at the start, and then you were just like pressing the button as soon as you could. Yeah, that was kind of annoying. I mean, it's not that fun.
There was no real impetus in just charging in guns blazing. It wasn't really a viable strategy.
I mean, the only time it became viable was like when you'd have secured everything to the point where you could just stick a chain gun on a tank and just run into a base and just use that to demolish it faster. It wasn't like you couldn't use it as an actual functional weapon.
No.
It was just like useful that it did more damage.
Crew.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really coordinate an attack where you were playing one part of it.
No, because the AI was kind of too dumb to manage themselves.
Exactly, yeah. But that's something that
could
could
defense, really, and defense only, right?
Yeah. Or just have them follow you when you're going in for the cleanup.
Yeah.
And the helicopters were a little too weak to be useful most of the time.
Yeah, so there was a lot of problems with its balance in general. Rob's hue lights are currently just randomly changing colour on us.
Don't worry, it means a thing.
No, I'm sure it does.
Hue.
You didn't turn on the on-air lights.
I didn't turn on the on-air lights today. Yeah.
So anyway, I guess I'm done. I'm sure I'll maybe come up with any other secondary old games to talk about, but someone else should actually do their thing.
That was good stuff. You've mostly mentioned all of the weird, obscure games that we like, that you like, and we like better than mainstream games, which is the thing.
All those good ones.
Like I said, I'm just a little surprised we didn't go further back, but I guess we're, I don't know, too dumb and too like too.
Well, the thing about like when we played old.
Let's talk about Sonic 3.
Sure, I mean, but whenever you think back to playing old games as like when you were younger, it's just like, why were we so dumb? It's not like child. There's a specific like set of dumbness where it's like you've got child dumb, where it's just like you just literally don't understand what you're doing and you're just flailing at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But then you have like the mid-age of dumb, where it's just like you somehow don't perceive how games and mechanics work. I mean, I guess that is just a learning thing. You just learn how things work over time. But like, it's that specific age of dumb where it's like you go back and play those games now. You're like, oh yeah, this is just like a regular ass video game. Why was this ever a problem?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think why we're playing about.
Sorry, carry on.
Like 95, but I was thinking about like Command and Conquer. Like I would never have got to the end of Command and Conquer. I don't think.
No,
like,
I mean I
did.
When
I was 10.
I got properly. In fact, I didn't get to the end of either of them. Like I got.
So you get to like the commando level, and you're like,
God,
how do I manage this?
Mission 6. I remember the number because I was like, it was just such a pain. I had a better time with Red Alert, but I don't think I finished Red Alert.
The tiny mission in that was pretty fucked up.
Yeah,
as well.
Oh, and that had timed missions, didn't it? That had a bit where you were indoors with like
the indoors missions were weird.
Yeah, it's fucking weird. Yeah,
you had dog squads only, wasn't there? Like,
yep, fucking managing the dogs even was.
Yeah, because they kill you instantly, right? If you're the spy.
Yeah,
Red Alert did at least have the INI file. Just go in and make.
Well, that's just it. That's what we did as kids, right? Is just cheat because it's the only way. You're too dumb to do it properly.
And make mammoth tanks fire invisible dogs.
Yep.
Because why not?
Was Command and Conquer actually a good? And that's what I'm wondering now. I'm looking at this remaster. It definitely was a good game, right? It had great production values, like probably better than most of the stuff today. Yeah. To be honest, in some ways.
I mean, this is the thing, and like it's a good RTS in the sense that both teams were pretty well balanced, right?
And distinct.
And and still distinct. It's it's the I mean, what came after it, like StarCraft, I suppose, was its main rival at that point.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And StarCraft has definitely kept that's lasted a lot longer than CNC has.
That's true.
But it probably a lot less games, and it probably learned from CNC quite a lot.
Maybe. I remember thinking Generals was pretty okay, especially the
Generals is a good
pack.
one. Yeah. I mean, Red Alert 2 was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, Red Alert 2 is great.
It's not the expansion pack though.
Better than Tiberium Sun, anyway.
Yeah. Famously disappointing. What was so bad about Tiberium Sun? It definitely wasn't that good. But like,
I never played it. So
I played it. It was like isometric. They changed it to be or like 3/4.
Yeah,
like,
a slightly weird angle.
On. Yeah,
I mean, Red Alert 2 was that same angle though.
Yeah, it was.
I think it was just like the mission design of Tiberium Sun was awkward.
I mean, wasn't it like
F&B was terrible? It was just so cheesy.
Wasn't it made super annoying by the burrowing tanks and things like that?
No,
they had too many. They had too much stuff that could bypass defenses, and the defenses you have are even awkward. Like the fucking firestorm walls, where you could only turn them on for a certain amount of time.
Oh, what?
Huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because like the end of the original CNC, though, was like massive hype for Tiberium Sun with the kind of mech or whatever, and it's like this is gonna be awesome.
They announced their own sequel in the first
at the end of the game, which had one of the best endings of any game, and it had two separate endings, and they were both great, right? Like the Nod ending was hilarious, where you had the like cyber warriors flying through cyberspace and getting so
and then you blow up,
and then you blow up whatever you want. Yeah, exactly. That was fun. Yeah, Command & Conquer was actually good, but I wouldn't put it on my list of pre-2010 games.
What would you put on your list of pre-2010 games? So great.
Let's see. Well, I've just added one. Well, we have to cut them down. So a lot of them are obvious ones. That's the thing. So that aren't worth talking about. So
yes, just name them and we'll move through.
I'll just name ones that are too obvious to talk about. So they are Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Half-Life, Halo.
Classic.
We
could talk about Halo. I mean, I was contemplating talking about Halo 2. Just
too
because
obvious.
I don't know what I'd say though.
Good job.
That's why that's why I said I was thinking about it, but just because, like, I mean, it didn't have an hour count on it, but I'm pretty sure it was the first game to beat out Final Fantasy VIII in terms of how much time I spent with a game.
Yeah, but you had circumstances which also enhanced that.
Yeah, exactly. It came out when LAN parties could be arranged easily, and I had lots of crews that were up for LAN parties
and like Halo.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think what's descending order of obviousness. Like, well, let's see. Batman Arkham Asylum is 2009, so it sneaks in there. I don't know if that's worth talking about.
I think we played it a little late anyway, so we might have actually covered it on early.
Yeah,
podcast.
I might have covered it. Okay, I'll cross that one off.
I mean, it is brilliant though.
Yeah,
it's my favorite of the Batman.
I mean, Deus Ex is obvious, but I think that might be my favorite, actually. Although, no, that's too much, isn't it? I don't know. It's a game I like to talk about anyway.
Yeah.
So talk about Deus Ex because it's like, I don't know. As I mentioned in my EGX coverage this year, I kind of think Cyberpunk is going to bring some of that back.
I really hope so. But
then you remember what happened with the Deus Ex sequels.
Yeah, the Deus Ex sequels. Like Human Revolution, I think is a good game. Not even just an okay game. I think it's good. But as a sequel to Deus Ex, like obviously Invisible War was a dud or whatever. I didn't even try because I knew it would be bad. But Human Revolution, I think we've covered this because I said this at the time. This is talking about Human Revolution rather than Deus Ex, but like it has one theme and it just sticks to it, and that's really annoying because Deus Ex had so many themes and they all worked together somehow. That's what I think is amazing about it. It's just a grab bag of every single conspiracy theory ever, from like the Illuminati to Majestic 12 to like Roswell aliens. Well, obviously that's Majestic 12, but like everything. They just pulled together into one world and made all the conspiracies work together, and like made them all kind of real. Was the thing. Like, oh, they're not conspiracies. They actually all happened. Yeah, exactly. And it's like there's a connection. It's like Majestic 12 are in Deus Ex. They're a splinter of the Illuminati, and they, the grey aliens are actually genetically engineered weapons or whatever that they had in their lab in Area 50, and it all connects together or whatever in like a weird way. And the plague, that's genetically, not genetically. Well, it's nanomachines, isn't it? Nanotechnology. Yeah, nanomachine, son. Yeah, but yeah, it just had so many different themes and things going on. Whereas like Human Revolution, it was just post-human, augmentation, and that was it. Whereas that was just one thing in Deus Ex. It just had so much stuff and such a rich world with all of these. Even though it looks terrible, even at the time it looked bad. Like the running around like sound effects and animations are just appalling.
I had some really. I remember, like, do you remember the sort of odd dither pattern?
Yeah. That whole thing, because it was like it was Unreal Engine, pretty relatively early Unreal, I think, but used for like quite large environments, right? Because Unreal was like
it was soon after UT, I think.
Yeah, it was roughly around there. And it's very, like, the color palette is very drab, right? It's like, it's not brown or gray. It's just like, I don't know. There's something, it really suits it though. Yeah. It's kind of, even that dither pattern makes it look like a kind of, I don't know,
it almost gives it
like
the
rainy,
Matrix green.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that
like
color grading.
Its look is too far off the kind of like, I don't know. It has that old game look that, like, I think System Shock had. Like, old game sci-fi kind of has this feel.
And even like the music is like cheesy, but actually like really good in a weird way. Like after a while, it just sets a kind of tone and atmosphere. That in keeping with the cheesy music, in keeping with the bad graphics, kind of. Not really selling it here, but
and bad voice acting.
And bad voice acting, yeah.
And the most cliches conspiracy theories known to man.
Yeah, all combined into something bigger than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, because it's such a cheese fest in a way that somehow the cheese evolves.
It all kind of works together, and there is some interesting stuff in there, and there is actually some good dialogue in there, like not well acted necessarily, but like all those ideas like filtering around and like just random side characters. Like you just go into that clinic in New York, and there's that guy talking about, you've just been fighting the NSF or whatever. This is really early on, but then there's a guy talking about his like experiences fighting in some state. There's all these backstories and stuff going on everywhere. It's not just like pretty ceilings, which is what was in Human Revolution.
Right. Yeah, I remember that now. Sorry, that took a little while for my. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they were cool, but that's not how you make cyberpunk or whatever. It had a grounding in. It didn't look that different to the current world, to be honest, in a lot of ways.
I mean, it's supposed to
more
be
run down. Yeah,
but only by a generation, right?
Yeah, and like the whole concept of like speccing yourself in different directions for doing different things has been done in RPGs to death for ages, but there just seemed to be some kind of promise of agency in Deus Ex that's missing from.
And don't forget inventory Tetris.
Yeah, I mean,
best inventory system ever.
I don't know about that.
That wasn't even bad. I mean, it was okay.
Sort of makes sense, I guess, as opposed to you just having a weight limit.
I mean, it was hilarious how you ended up with like a laser dragon sword thing that you would use to open boxes. I mean, it was
your only melee weapon.
But that was a fun little bit with Maggie Chow or whatever her name was. In Hong Kong. Like, it was really globetrotting, wasn't it? It's a long game, right? Like, you go all over the place. Like Vandenberg Air Force Base and...
But conveniently everywhere, it's always night.
And it's always night, of course, and you always have to wear sunglasses, which works really well. I don't know. And I like going back to your home base or whatever. I always like that in games, but then they flip it over and make it like it's actually the evil base after all and stuff like that. Conspiracies. I don't know. It's all cliches, all wrapped together. But it just worked really well. I don't think they've done that quite as well since. Maybe Cyberpunk will do it. I'm sort of hopeful.
Yeah, I think it could. Well, I mean, that game has the potential to be like there is no one you trust kind of thing. It's like the whole thing is going to be messy in every direction.
It blew my mind when I realized you could actually save your brother in Deus Ex. Doesn't really do much, but it's kind of cool.
And annoyingly difficult, though.
Yeah, it's quite difficult, but you can always cheese it. That was the thing about Deus Ex, isn't it? There's usually a way to, because the AI was so dumb, you could probably figure out a way to do it.
Yeah,
to set up a lot of lambs. Like, it had a lot of cool tools. Like, even though there was no physics. Yeah. It's impressive how much you could do given there was no physics, right, in the game. Or in terms of like setting up traps and things and doing stuff.
And it was cool apart from when it eventually screws you if you get too fancy.
Yeah.
Like that time when I like super early I spec'd for like extra heavy lifting so I could move the giant crates around.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then, but then I got like the extra tier of that lets you move the super big ones. And then when you go to Battery Park, and there's the hexagonal fortress thing.
Yeah, the castle.
I used the huge crates out there to build a staircase to get on top of it and shoot the guys inside. Because I thought that's a great stealth method. But then the game doesn't really recognize that.
It doesn't really let you do that.
The scripting.
Oh no!
You found a sequence break.
Well, it's not really a sequence break. It's like the game just doesn't realize that you've done it, and like because it doesn't detect that you're in the zone because you're like on top of the building and you're not really meant to even be up there, and it's like weird. But yeah, it's like you can do cool things, but sometimes you can push it slightly too far.
I really remember like all the characters, like like Anna Navarra and Gunter Herman and Mandalay, isn't it? And Alex Jacobson and Tracer Tong. Like, there's not many games where I can, I guess like Mass Effect I can. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Deus Ex.
I think I just always sucked at that game. There was something. I don't remember. Maybe it's just one of those things like stupid dumb kid, and I was a Quake player, But it's like there was just.
Well, you were too much about shooting. It's like the modern Deus Ex, too much about trying to go for gunplay and not so much about stealth.
Well, yeah, because like the gunplay didn't really work.
No, exactly. That's why you couldn't do it.
But you had to play stealthy, really, and I think I tried and just wasn't good at it. Like things would always go bad.
Yeah. But then you could just run away and wait for the music to stop.
Yeah, and I think I did that a lot, and that was. And I ended up getting a bit bored of it.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay.
Or just quick loads.
Just quick loads. I mean, I was trying to avoid doing that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's long, and the levels aren't like tightly designed or anything. They're more like real spaces, I guess, than like the carefully constructed Half-Life levels where they're funneling you through without you realizing that it's not a real place. In Deus Ex, it's more like, well, it's a warehouse. Hope you find the exit. Yeah.
It depends on the game, but that's sort of okay on its own, though, isn't it? Right?
Yeah. It's just different. But it gives it a sense of it being a real place or whatever. Like, but it can be frustrating if you don't know where you're going.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. That's Deus Ex. What else have I got on here? Well, Grim Fandango. Come on, guys. Not enough people played that. Or now you've got the remake remaster. Which fixes the fact that
on the cast, because this was my first playthrough of it, wasn't it? When my first proper playthrough of it when the remaster came out.
So should we say we have that covered? I mean, what do you think of Grim Fandango? That's easily one of my favorite games. Yeah,
I think I ended up preferring its by the end of it, I preferred its style over how it actually played.
Yeah,
I think it's some of the. I think I was a bit disappointed with how the actual puzzles played out. Like there's the super complex. Was it year 2?
Year 2's the main bit. Yeah.
Where it felt like a lot of the game came together for me.
Yeah.
But then when it's actually funneling you through sections, it's like the puzzles are actually really quite simple. And then you've got that annoying one in the woods. And that's
which
the
one?
sign,
the one with
and that was
that
was because the sign wasn't working properly.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, there's definitely some dodgy puzzles in it, but there's some clever ones too. It's definitely, I mean, it's all about that year 2. I mean, it's great, like rushes towards the end, the story and stuff, and it's like, but that's the heart of the game for sure. Is the Casablanca area. I mean, it's the big area, right?
Yeah, and it took me a little while to learn all the routes there and things like that as well, and optimize my paths through it, because there's an awful lot of just walking from place to place in that.
Yeah, there's a couple of shortcuts in Rubikava, but you do have to like run across bridges with airships and things. Yeah,
and there's a couple of things where you know there's a thing. It does that thing that puzzle games. Maybe this was the first puzzle game to do this in a way that resonated with me, actually. Like in that, you could often tell when there was a thing to do. It's like, oh, there's something here. I realize, because I can interact with it. I know I must at some point. But and the game is showing me that through, there's some sort of action or some sort of custom dialogue for a thing. But it's like, oh, but then I can't actually do that yet. So, okay, maybe or maybe I'm not doing it right. It's like it had some ways of pointing you in the right direction where, I don't know, like, you look back at some of the previous LucasArts games like Sam and Max, I don't know if it really had hints for what you should do next in that game all that enough. Like the combinations are just so out there that like there were no clues as to be like, this needs to combine with this. That was almost my Sam voice there. Hope no one was on that bus.
No one we know, at least. Yeah, I just love the style and the characters.
Yeah,
the
style's incredible, and Manny's an excellent character.
And I don't know of any. I mean, there was that Pixar movie Coco that had some similar ideas, but I don't know of anything that does that. What an amazing combination! Film noir and Mexican folklore, and all of that together, it just works perfectly.
And that sort of 50s tech vibe.
Yeah, because actually, I said this recently, but I watched Brazil the other day, and I hadn't realized how much that influenced Grim Fandango.
Right,
the computers are basically straight out of Brazil.
Brazil's a weird film. I've seen it, but I wouldn't say I get on with it.
No, but it's strange. Terry Gilliam.
You can see how some of the ideas influenced people.
Yeah. Okay, that's Grim. What else have I got? Jet Set Radio Future. I mean, you've talked that you've covered that recently.
Yeah,
that's on my list, mostly for style, to be honest.
Oh yeah. Like the gameplay is a bit
shonky.
It's a bit funky now. Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of,
I will go back and play the original at some point because it is a different beast.
Yeah.
If you want good gameplay, I've got Burnout 3 Takedown on here.
Yep, pretty damn good.
I mean, it's the zenith of the Burnout formula.
I would say so, and probably of the arcade racer that, in my mind, for me,
probably.
Yeah.
Depends if we're counting future races in this category.
Yeah, I mean, Burnout 3 versus, like, what's your favorite Wipeout or F-Zero? Well, you do talk about F-Zero GX,
but by a long way.
Yeah, I personally prefer Burnout 3. That's contentious.
I don't think those are that similar, though. Really,
I mean, they're not, but they're in that sort of arcadey category. The sort of racing game that doesn't really exist all that much.
No,
outside of Crash, Team Racing, and Team Sonic Racing, I suppose.
Dangerous Driving.
Those are the Mario Kart.
I mean, those are kart racers, but they're sort of arcade. They're about as good as we get in terms of arcade races these days, right? We get the kart racing side.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, we've got Grip, I suppose.
But there's no like Mario Kart 8 for Burnout type games, right? Like the perfect.
I mean, they keep trying to make Need for Speeds and Burnouts, but they're all been bad since.
Yeah,
we could return to the conversation about Blur.
Yeah,
that
was
Blur.
Probably the closest.
Yeah, which we've brought up that several times as well. But it's Holy Cow, Blur.
I'd be happy with. I'd be happy with just a remake of Burnout 3, not remake, but I guess remake, remaster.
Yeah.
A lot of people really like
Paradise,
but we definitely don't.
No,
I don't. I've tried it multiple times, trying to get into Paradise, and it's just not as good as Burnout 3. Yeah, I don't get it.
In the same way, I don't see what they see when they gave DMC5 Best Action Game of the Year.
I think it was like, in some ways, I could understand like the car exploration. But in some ways, it's just like I don't want to drive around slowly.
No, that's not.
Burnout.
That's great in Grand Theft Auto, but not for Burnout, right? Yeah, I don't. Yeah, and just doesn't make sense for me. And like a grid city, and I don't know. It's like Burnout 3 had much more variety because it had variety of locales or whatever, because it had different stages, right? And they were like mirrored, and they moved into each other and stuff. It felt like there was a lot of track in Burnout 3.
because some of the stages were really quite long. At the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, because you were going pretty damn fast and for quite a while. Yeah. And like just obviously the track that was introducing the traffic, the takedown mechanic, which was just perfect in Burnout
But
3.
before traffic checking, though.
Yeah, but before traffic checking.
I enjoyed Burnout Revenge. I know you guys didn't latch onto it quite so much.
Not as good though, is it?
I mean,
I'm not saying it's not enjoyable, but yeah, I
mean, you might be right. I mean, I'm honestly not sure where I sit in terms of which one's better than the other. They're incredibly similar games, really. But it's and the traffic checking really didn't bother me. And I think it had the slight edge with me at the time because I played the PS2 version of Burnout 3, which was
and then when you
was definitely not as crisp and as nice looking.
Right.
It played fine, but it wasn't quite as well put together as the Xbox version. And we're jumping up to the
Revenge was on 360.
HD version of Revenge, on 360 was really quite nice, even if it did suffer from a little bit of next gen filter.
It definitely did, yeah. It was very colourful, the Burnout 3, and like the cars and stuff. And even the crash mode was really fun. Like I got a lot out of doing the crash mode. It wasn't just like an extra thing that you had to do to get the 100%. It was like, this is actually kind of fun.
It actually was puzzles. That was the important thing.
Only kinda though, because it had the problem where because they put those multipliers in.
Oh, sure, it was a puzzle.
Yeah,
it was like there was one specific way to solve it.
Yeah, there was like, you have to go this way. Which may take you, and it had the problem where you couldn't really preview the area, so it's like,
you had to just drive in there a couple of times,
and see how things panned out.
I think my only problem with Burnout
Revenge did even crazier ones than went way beyond that because it had some levels that were on multiple levels, so you'd have to crash off an overpass and then land on a bit of track that's below you where there's more traffic and stuff like that. I want to say Revenge did a way more creative variant of it.
I feel like 3 might have had a couple like that, but not as much. I definitely remember the overpass jumping off crashes.
Yeah.
You had to do.
Yeah. There was definitely some difficulty spike. What would happen was you'd be going along fine, and then suddenly there'd be some kind of hot lap where you could earn a really fast car. But it was fucking impossible suddenly. And so that was a little bit spiky in terms of difficulty.
And sometimes they held you back because that was the one event you had left,
right?
Kind of thing.
Yeah,
it wasn't too bad at that, and it normally gave you an option of a few races to do at once. But I think every now and then you got a gate, and it's like, right, I've actually got to do this one.
But still, really stylish. Well, good production values on that. And
this is what I mean. I want to say, I felt this Burnout 3 to me felt like a landmark moment for the industry as a whole in the terms of the raw presentation factor.
Looking good.
It hit a new level at that point. Not just the how the world looked and things like that, but the pop-ups of the stars,
on-screen graphics and everything.
How all that worked. I'm even going to put a note out there and be like that. EA Tracks pop up, man. This is included. It's there is UI in this game that is kick ass.
Seriously
all the time.
great.
It is incredibly well designed.
But then of course EA did what EA do and just put that in every game they made.
Yeah.
Like Tiger Woods and everything. Just put EA Tracks into Tiger Woods and the same graphical pop-ups and all the UI, basically the same main menu.
Y'all gonna make me lose
up in here. Okay.
While playing golf.
And my final game of the 10 is Knights of the Old Republic.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, really doing something great with Star Wars at a time when nothing was good with Star Wars. And even now,
and before the second time, nothing was good with Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. Even now, I'm really enjoying The Mandalorian, but it's not, themes don't get as interesting and dark as in KOTOR or its sequel. But the original Knights of the Old Republic, the BioWare one, is just more well-rounded and classic than 2. 2, it goes into some weird areas, which is kind of more fun in a lot of ways. But I think KOTOR was what was needed for Star Wars, and I really like the way it went into depth on a lot of the lore and stuff in cool ways. Going to Kashyyyk and all the stuff with the Wookiees was really cool, and and the overarching plot line with the it has a twist worthy of Luke, I am your father, which is really, really good. Did you ever play that? Do you know the twist?
I think I only played like a very small portion of the beginning, probably on your Xbox.
Right. Yeah. Because the gameplay itself, it was like it was the BioWare, so it was like halfway between like Neverwinter Nights and Mass Effect. Right? So it was basically D&D mechanics, but they made it look kind of real time.
Select rapid fire blaster over
and over again. Exactly. Yeah. So the fights weren't that. I mean, it was about item management and stuff. So it wasn't like the best in terms of the RPG combat, although it was D&D, like it was all dice rolls and stuff. So in theory that was a good basis, but they might as well have moved to like a Mass Effect thing quicker if they could, but they were just evolving what they were doing, and that's hard to do with lightsabers. Yeah, but the whole thing of like you go and because it's a long game, you get to like train and become a Jedi and make a lightsaber and all of that stuff. And yeah, at one point you're on the Jedi Dantooine in the academy, and you go out just into the fields and farms and start solving random mysteries. It's just I don't know.
I mean, therefore carrying on an RPG trope for years.
Yeah, exactly. It's basically standard stuff, but like
just randomly overhearing a conversation on the Citadel and being being like, I can fix
you're a Jedi so
because I'm Commander Shepard.
Yeah. Well, it makes more sense if you're a Jedi than if you're some military commander dude, I would say. Yeah.
I have all the empathies. I am Shepard. Sure.
It was cool. And I like the way it's like a set like 1,000 years before Star Wars, so it can have all the same tropes, but completely detach itself from the Star Wars story, so you'd have to worry, which works really well.
And they went back to the Old Republic for the MMO. I suppose when none of us.
Yeah, I mean the Old Republic.
Like,
I think
did they cover the same sort of? Was.
I think it's set
the same
after
time period as KOTOR. Or
I think it's set. I think they're all set after because Revan is an important character in the canon in that time period. So I presume they're set after KOTOR 2, like the Old Republic.
In that canon.
Yeah, in that. Well, maybe that's no longer canon, any of that, presumably. But that was the advantage. It was 1,000 years before, so it didn't really matter if it's canon or not because it doesn't affect like Darth Vader or anything like that particularly. Yeah. But the way that the Star Wars universe works is technology doesn't change very fast, so all the spaceships and everything are still viable. And but you can
longer time ago.
But yeah, exactly.
About the same distance away.
The exact same distance.
Expansion of space time.
Yeah, except for the fact that space time itself is expanding. And going back to Tatooine, and they might at that point in history they're actually mining, with the sandcrawler type things, the Zerka Corporation, all of that stuff. I don't know. It's cool. As a Star Wars fan, it's probably my favorite Star Wars game, even though there are good ones like X-Wing or TIE Fighter, I suppose.
Or everyone's new favorite Star Wars game.
Yeah, apparently.
Fallen Order.
No, not that one.
No. Just
denied.
Straight up no.
Denied. So that's my list of 10, and then for some reason while you were talking I wrote down Splinter Cell Chaos Theory.
It was probably the best of that age of Splinter Cell.
Yeah, I played it on PC and it was like mysteriously better than the other ones, and like
was that the third one in the series?
Yeah, the third one, but they had a completely new graphics engine and stuff, and it had new mechanics like but I think that's the one with like who turned that delight. But I don't know, it's like obviously I didn't play that much Metal Gear before. Now I mean Metal Gear Solid 5 is the best stealth game, I would say, indefinitely, but Splinter Cell Chaos Theory was like pretty good, and I liked the whole kind of weird Tom Clancy-esque NSA conspiracy theory stuff. Is it the third one? Yeah, Pandora Tomorrow was the second one, right? I played all of them, I think. I played the original one on Xbox because that was amazing looking. At the time, it had cloth physics and
the importance of light, right?
Yeah, the light stuff. That's the thing. Like the light stuff is not really in Metal Gear, and that works really well in Splinter Cell. Although it doesn't make any sense that you have bright green things on your face and on your back for some reason.
And, you spend hundreds of rounds of ammo shooting lights.
Yeah, it was mostly for shooting lights, but you do get like an electronic like disruptor pistol at one point in Chaos Theory, so you can actually turn off lights without shooting them. There's all kinds of cool gadgets and stuff in that one as well. I seem to remember, like non-lethal stuff like rubber bullets, because obviously you do the whole game non-lethal if you can, but then you end up with like electroshock, laser tag things that you shoot at people and then
shove them
zaps them or whatever. Yeah, and then piling up bodies in a cupboard in the CIA. I mean, I think that one has infiltrating the CIA. Oh, maybe that's the first game. But it's definitely got some good sequences. Another globe-trotting adventure type thing. I think you end up in Korea while it's being attacked by North Korea in Chaos Theory. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I really like that one.
Bonza.
Random list of stuff. Rob, do you want to list some stuff?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably going to go badly because I haven't really...
Because Rob hasn't planned enough.
No. But a couple of things that sort of like memories that were triggered, I suppose, from what you guys have been saying. Like, I remember we played quite a ridiculous amount of Unreal Tournament 2004.
Yeah, I was thinking about 2003, but 2004 probably was the one we put more in.
Yeah, 2004 was the one, right? Because I remember being like I got quite into UT, but I always knew that Quake 3 was better, right? Out of those two back in the day. Like UT
original UT.
Yeah, original UT just had more, right?
Yeah.
It was a hell of a lot of content and a hell of a lot of weirdness you could do, and I was kind of into my Instagib. That was a fun mode to just... I don't know. I think back then I was a bit of an idiot. I didn't need nuance in my games. I just needed a lot of gibs, like
ludicrous gibs, in fact.
Yeah, exactly. The fact that you could like mutate all those to be ridiculous, and and I just didn't mind going around shooting semi-dumb bots.
Yep.
I didn't
Sims of the UT world.
And I'd be playing it for like score rather than like, how many kills can I get in the same time period?
I mean, we did that in Quake 2 as well.
Yeah.
Like when we developed the routes, where it's just like loop this route over and over, and you just get all the best guns and the best ammo, and you just kill any bot that comes to you.
And this is where the bots will be. Yeah. Doing that in the time period, see if we can best each other. What were those bots even called? Do you remember the Quake 2 bots? Like, because you had to mod them in, didn't you? There was some name for the pack, the specific pack we used because we liked how they played.
I just remember getting over 100 kills on Toke stats.
Yep,
that was the gold standard.
That was the goal. Yeah, just getting your route right so you can get hold of the BFG and then sit in the box. Just sit there for a while.
Use all the ammo up and then go back to the route.
Yeah. And go do some loops. Get that super shotgun. Oh man, super shotgun in Quake 2. Still probably the best sounding. Like, for shotguns for impact. That was the one, right? Because it's just so loud.
I quite like the Half-Life one when you don't have the weird option switched on for high res.
Oh, the new
guns.
Yeah. The original POW.
The original
literally sounded like someone saying POW, like POW. It's a weird sounding gun, but it's kind of all right. It's no super shotgun though. It's up there, but it's no super shotgun.
No, true.
But Unreal Tournament 2004 obviously had Assault.
Yes. So going back to the point. Yeah, there was a story unfolding here. So so I kind of like my games to be dumb, and then
we learned.
But I liked UT because of its sheer it had a load of content. And UT 2003 happened, and me and my brother immediately jumped on this bandwagon, and played well and looked great, but it had a content issue. Like 2003 didn't really have a whole lot of stuff in it. Like it pretty much only did the deathmatch stuff. Whereas UT had the crazy assault mode and it had the one on the train. That was what everyone remembered from like the original UT. It had the train and it had that CTF map in space. Like it had moments like that, whereas 2003 kind of didn't. It was a weird letdown, which is all the more surprising then that only 1 year later they put out 2004 that fixed all of this.
Yep.
Well,
and had a ridiculous amount of content. Like by today's multiplayer standards, it's like you wouldn't put out a game that size anymore.
Well, I don't know. You could do.
I mean, if you think how many, it had all the content from 2003. So
well, I mean that doesn't count though.
No, but it had all the standard deathmatch stuff, which was all right. It added to the standard deathmatch stuff with a whole load more maps as well.
Yeah.
It then added a whole load more mode maps as well. So you gained all the like some more CTF levels and things like that. But then it added assault, which is which was the trainee sort of objective style attack and defend levels and things, but then ran so wild with them. Like, I don't know. The first one I remember playing was that one that was in that sort of canyon. And it starts off being a bit of an on-foot battle, but then it turns into you've got to get the sort of jeep, the giant jeep thing through the level. But it got to crazy points as well, where you had to be defending the giant magnetic crane while it lifted it over a part of the level, and the enemy had to try and disrupt the crane so that the car didn't make it to the location, and it was just and I thought that was pretty mad. And then you get to the one where it starts in space, which was like, okay,
it was cool, but the space kind of shooting.
Oh yeah, the combat itself was garbage. But the fact that they just did that, and just say, yeah, why not? We'll have a space shooter in here for a bit. It was like anything goes was kind of the rule here, and it for the most part worked pretty well. I don't know, you got those like these sort of weird pre-Wraith, I suppose, vehicles.
Well, that's when they tried to they sort of did their battlefield mode where you had like the nodes that you had to capture, and then they had a huge map and you had vehicles. It was Battlefield essentially, but in UT.
And even that kind of worked pretty okay. It had the what was it? No, it wasn't Wraith. I was thinking of Ghosts.
Yeah,
and actually maybe the Halo Ghosts might have come out first. Anyway, they had cars like that. But it had a variety of vehicles, and then every now and then you could spawn the Uber vehicle and wreak havoc upon the entire level, and it was a hell of a lot of fun. We played a lot of it. Shout out to UT 2004,
and server browser, good old days,
a proper server browser. And then they dropped the ball on UT3 completely, because it sort of had the. It sort of had the problem that UT 2003 did, except they then didn't do a UT3 and a bit. And that community project for the most recent UT didn't really go anywhere.
Nope.
Because Fortnite happened primarily. So a big shout out to that. That was a huge portion of my game time for a spell. The one thing I'd sort of planned to talk about, because I was playing a bit of it today, was Soul Calibur 2.
Whoop, whoop.
I'm not generally into I wasn't back then into my fighting games really.
Just Smash Brothers.
Just Smash, yeah. But Soul Calibur 2 changed all that. I don't know. I've been trying to remember why I actually ended up buying that, right? Because it's not like I tried it, I don't think, anywhere before.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been like a demo or whatever.
I think I'd played a bit of the Dreamcast Soul Calibur, right? So I played a bit of the original, but I don't remember playing it a whole lot. So, like, why I ended up picking up Soul Calibur 2 is a mystery to me. But boy, am I glad I did, because it's still, like, I haven't got around to playing Soul Calibur 6 yet, but it's one of my favorite fighting games of all time. Like, it's seriously good. like even going back to it today, it's just like, oh yeah, this holds up. It still plays really well. It's sort of simplistic by modern standards. Like it's a 3D fighter without a special gauge or any kind of crazy, like, oh, I'm being worn down. It doesn't have a dizziness mechanic or anything like that. It's like it's missing stuff that I suppose you might expect in modern games. It's not all that combo rich either, but it's just a lot of fun to play, and it's a lot of fun to try and land moves at the right time and outthink your opponent. It's one of those games where I feel like I can outthink what the AI is going to do, or what certain players do. If they rely on a certain move, there's a way out, and things like that. And it's like the move set is the base mechanics of how it functions, from the horizontal, vertical, and kick combos with the 8-way run stuff in there, and how they interact with each other. It's an intuitive game. Like, I don't know, some fighting games I just find, like Street Fighter, for instance, I just find they have such a high barrier of high requirement of execution to do well in them.
Yeah.
That I don't think Soul Calibur has ever had. You can still feel like a badass even when you know you're playing terribly, like in the grand scheme.
That's evidenced by the fact that I even played
yeah
quite a lot of Soul Calibur 2 at your house.
I mean, we had a great time. It's like even like I mean, it was mildly frustrating that I never got better at it. Right, it was one of those games that I played a lot of, but I never really felt like I was good at it. So that's mildly irritating. But it meant that we had a great time when we did just like loads and loads of random 101s, right?
Yep.
And it was still great. We could still have an excellent time, and I think it was helped a great deal by the stupid pre-match chant thing.
I don't think it was helped a great deal, but it was pretty funny.
I had totally forgotten about it until I fired it up, but it is hilarious. Like you just like before a fight begins, there's a brief moment where you can press one of the buttons and your character will just shout something. And like you could create some pretty decent combos. And of course, the GameCube version had Link in it.
Yep,
who was excellent.
Of course.
And it was just a really good realization of what Link could be in a fighting game as well.
Was it?
I mean, yeah, it was really. His moveset was pretty great. It felt, true to the character, and despite them having to add quite a lot to it to make him fighting game rich, right? But you could get the bow out still. You could get the boomerang out. You could get bombs out. It was crazy time. And he sounded like Link.
That's not difficult.
Yeah. But it was like Skank. Yeah. It was the most high res version of Link we'd seen in a game as well at the time. It was the most detailed one because Smash hadn't come out yet. I suppose that model might have been better. But
I don't know if the Smash model would have been better because it was like so much scaled down.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, Smash, the graphics in Melee were quite impressive at the time. It's like, oh, holy crap, Mario wears denim.
But it's like, and also Melee had the same thing that we said about Smash Ultimate. It's like it's a lot of graphics. It's not just great graphics. It's also a lot
more
of graphics.
But on top of all of that, just on the basics, it's like it had one of the most engaging single player chunks of content that that I think almost every fighting game since has just failed upon. Like it's Edge Master mode, which is effectively like a little. I say little; it was pretty big. It's like it was a story mode. Effectively, you move from place to place along a map, but each of the locations would have like a little story behind it and a little bit of an introduction to the character you were fighting and why. But probably some modifier to the fight as well. It's like, oh hey, you're poisoned during this fight. Oh hey, the ground is quicksand. Like the positioning is good. The height positioning of your moves is probably going to be messed up for this round. Everyone dies in one hit rounds. That kind of stuff. And it was good. It was really cool. It was a way of keeping you going by just throwing you into curated scenarios that were fun to play, and a way of testing you. And I think that some of the Mortal Kombat games might have been doing some of this with the Towers mode. I think MK9 might have done that the best.
Well, yeah, that's when it came back at last.
Yeah,
when fighting games decided to have anything other than arcade mode.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, MK9 had its killer. Started off this trend of having a killer storyline as well. Which you might argue that NetherRealm are still the kings of, even now.
even though, as always, they're just ever digging a bigger hole to try and make an excuse to get out of.
Oh yeah,
the classic,
it's always
classic fighting game story problem.
Well, yeah, to the point where, like, in Mortal Kombat, at least, they just go, well, hey, it's all time travel, we can just do it again.
Yeah.
And they do. And then use the same storyline for the Injustice series. That's pretty much what they do, right?
Yeah.
Like, they use the same thing over and over again, but somehow it works. Yeah, because they did the most recent Soul Calibur I played was 5. Which I think plays really well, and I think like the guest character for that, Altair, was a really, really good character as well. Like they do pretty decent with their guest characters, excluding the Star Wars stuff. Soul Calibur 4, you kind of sucked. But that had a very scripted story mode. It's like where you were following specific characters through and doing specific things, which could have been all right. I mean, other games have done it okay, but it just wasn't. It just wasn't written well. It wasn't interesting at all. Like, although I will say, like, in terms of not being written well, there was one, like the arcade mode in Soul Calibur 2. Like towards the end, you have like the last 2 fights are like scripted fights, right? So it's like the last. I think the one before the last one is always Inferno, but the one before that is like a defined character, and you have a little exchange. Except when in Mitsurugi's, he comes up against Taki, and the exchange was clearly like a poor translation from Japanese, because Mitsurugi goes, "It's you. I've had enough of you." To which Taki replies, "Haven't you had enough?" And it's like, yes, I just said that. Japanese translations. Anyway, yeah, Soul Calibur 2, it's a hell of a game. It's still a hell of a game. It's still fantastic to play. I know there's a lot of... The commentary seems to always be around the first game, like, and just how big a deal that Dreamcast version was of Soul Calibur 1. But hey, Soul Calibur 2 is my game.
Yeah.
And also, I guess the other thing that I want to bring up, that I guess we touched on it here and there over the years, but I kind of want to talk about the demise of the light gun game.
Oh,
classics,
sad times.
Because, man, those are some, like, those are some good times. Playing TC at your place on a tiny little screen.
Yeah.
That Time Crisis port for PlayStation actually
was with
those
the
first 2 Time Crisis games they put out. Namco did right by them. Like, the home ports were good.
Yeah,
like
not just it had a whole second episode thing. That
exactly.
They built.
This is kind of what I mean. It's like they always gave you something more than just the arcade. They did. I'm forgetting. Did the original Time Crisis have an arranged mode as well, where like enemies in the main playthrough were slightly different? Or was that later entries they started adding that?
I don't remember.
But anyway, it was like, it was. Yeah, I think the arcade version ran at 60 and the home version only ran at 30, so there was that. But it didn't really matter. It's like it looked pretty much identical to the arcade version and played just as well with some of the tricks and some of the like little things you could do in the environment. TC was a hell of a game. Like as far as light gun games go, it was sort of that agency of having the pedal. Made a huge
little
difference.
Button on the side of the gun.
Yeah. Oh, of course, yeah. You played with the button. It didn't have a mode where you could like use a second controller.
I don't know.
And like you could put it on the floor and just put your foot on it, and then that would act as like a pedal.
That would be cool. I don't remember doing that.
I think I tried it and then decided it was uncomfortable because
because you're standing on a controller.
Yeah,
pretty much.
But yeah, the original two, and then they did an even better job with Time Crisis 2 on the PlayStation 2. I mean, they didn't just take the arcade version and try and put it on the PlayStation. They realized the PS2 had more power than the arcade version. So they did a full graphics pass on it. So all of the models are tighter. Like all of the water has been made reflective and lovely. certain elements of the game were actually tightened up and made it so they played slightly better. It's a fantastic job, and you could use your original G-Cons on the PlayStation, so I didn't have to buy a G-Con 2 or any of that, and it was a really very, very good port of that game. And TC2 is probably my favorite light gun game of all time. It's just, I can still remember the patterns now. It's that kind of thing. There's this where the yellow guys are going to pop up for extra points. I can still remember. I played that game far too many times, and tried desperately to get the top tier ranks, which were really, really difficult to get. But it's I think it might be my if you were to go make a Hall of Fame for light gun games, TC2 is probably right at the top.
Yeah.
It's just even some of the music stings are just fantastic. And
was there ever a port of Virtua Cop for anything? I guess for
PC. Well, the PC got Virtua Cop 1 and 2 with mouse controls.
Yeah.
The Saturn, I think, got a version of Virtua Cop, sorry. Well, we're on the subject of Virtua Cop. Shout out to Virtua Cop 3, that lesser-known arcade game, because that was a weird one, right? It was odd. Because it was fairly modern. It was one of the last. Well, they're still I say one of the last. They're still putting out House of the Dead games. There's a new arcade machine I discovered the other day. It's the arcade. They're still making them every now and then. But this one had the mechanic where your survival technique, instead of just being some random countdown timer, or just the Virtua Cop countdown thing, the ring that closes around people.
Yeah.
It also had you had a limited energy pool that you would press a pedal down and it would slow down time. So if you were just about to fail to hit a guy, you could slow down time and hit him early. If you had failed to hit the guy just wrong, though, the bullet might be in the air, and you could slow down time to shoot the bullet out of the air, which you had to do in a couple of places. It was forced upon you. Otherwise you were going to die. It was an arcade game after all.
Yep.
But man, it was cool. When you got it right, and you'd got your energy, you had enough energy in just the right spots, so you could push the pedal down and shoot all the bullets out of the air and then survive. You could get through most of that game without taking a hit. I got good enough at the arcade version to, because we had one when I worked at a bowling alley.
Not by spending a ton of money.
No, I did actually spend a ton. We didn't get free.
You didn't open it up.
No. Well, we didn't own those machines.
Well,
they were rented. So
you didn't have the rental guy, did we?
We didn't. Well, no, he wasn't on site.
Well, no.
But and I don't think we basically had to give people money and make notes when things went wrong. We couldn't go and free cred people would be like, oh, okay, we'll give you £1 out of the till and we'll have to put a note in to charge the rental guys. So I probably pumped quite a lot of money into that thing. But it was a cool game. As was Ghost Squad.
I might still have the card for that in my wallet. Let me just check.
Oh yeah. But this is why I wanted to bring it up, because of the card stuff. It was crazy. Not only was it a
Oh no, yep, I do.
No, you actually do.
You what? You really have
my
that?
Ghost Squad card, which I maybe only used twice.
Need to find my initial D card, which was my initial D, because that's all it would let me enter.
Hells yeah. Well, I'm amazed you still have that.
Well, it's just wallet filler. That's my. It's a lot. It's most of the keys on my keyring. They don't actually do anything any longer. They're just filler.
In fairness, I think I had
for
one
ballast.
Of those, I think I had one of those Mario Kart
The
GP cards in my wallet for a long time. So it had the card system, and what that meant is it actually the game changed as you leveled up. So the more you played, the more options became available to you in the game, And it also gave you unlocked costumes for you as you went along as well. So you could be playing as a giant panda, I think, at some point, which was pretty hilarious. Or you could bring slightly different guns in, or you could do it did some neat stuff, for an arcade game.
Purely in the service of getting you to play it more, though.
Oh yeah, and it totally worked because it was actually a fun shooter on its own.
Yeah.
I think it came out on the Wii when they tried to do light gun games for the Wii. So that probably doesn't hold up because those Wii gun, the Wii shooting wasn't all that accurate.
The cursors were always laggy. That was the problem.
Because they put out House of the Dead Overkill, which didn't get an arcade release because of all the swearing on the Wii as well.
But somehow got on the Wii.
Yeah.
But what about Point Blank? I mean, come on.
I mean, I was getting to it.
No way.
I love Point Blank. Point Blank 1, 2, and 3. All of them. They're all fantastic. I love their style. I love their the quick fire. I suppose it makes sense for a gun game to be quick fire in nature.
Yeah.
But the whole presentation, like through and through, is quick fire, right? Like you're into a thing, you're onto the next thing. Doors open, bang, do your thing. Oh, you failed the thing.
I mean, it's the WarioWare of gun games.
Yeah. What a fantastic thing that is. It's just like we don't care about being serious and stuff. We just want to give you things to shoot at because that's what you want to do, right? It's a great multiplayer game. It had some fun 2-player specific stuff as well, and it's just a little bit of a shame that they didn't. They went off in a slightly different direction after Point Blank. They went to Ghoul Panic, where they were like, "Oh, let's make a spooky one, but we'll make this one using a 3D engine," and it wasn't as good. I mean, it played okay, but it just wasn't as tight and as fun as those 2 eggheads that were for some reason the mascots of Point Blank.
Yep.
And it's like, yeah, I love Point Blank, and it's it'll be one of those games in the rare time you will ever see any of these arcade machines. Like Point Blank will be no hesitation. I'm playing that because I could probably get through the harder mode on it in a credit. Although I bet my aim's not as good as it once was.
No, probably not.
It's been many a year since I played it. It's one of those things. If I had a garage, right, and
money to spend on an arcade machine.
Well, not only that. I'd probably just pick up a big CRT screen somehow. Try and find an old CRT screen that's in good nick and still works.
You might actually be able to get an arcade machine for cheaper at this point.
You might be right, yeah. And then just attach a PlayStation and a PS2 to it. Maybe my Dreamcast actually, because I had the guns for the Dreamcast as well. So I could play House of the Dead 2 and Confidential Mission, which was a terrible Bond-inspired virtual cop, basically. It was Virtual Cop, but if they went full cheese.
Virtual Cop kind of didn't have any cheese. I mean, it's theoretical cheese, but it was just like it was so neutral.
Oh yeah. It was dumb, but it was actually quite straight faced, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was like, is that one of those phrases I always get wrong? Straight faced or straight laced? It's like, do both of them work here?
Might as well be the same thing, I think. Straight laced is the slightly more common one. Probably.
Yeah. That's what made me think about it. It's like they might have a straight face while they're talking to you about Virtual Cop, but maybe they are actually straight laced. Anyway, yeah, Confidential Mission was dumb. That was just my little serenade to the gun game. I never really. I mean, House of the Dead 3 came out on Xbox, but I didn't go that way because that was basically the only gun game you could get for Xbox. Oh no, sorry, they put out that sniper game.
Yeah.
Whatever that was called.
Sniper Scope.
Oh yeah. That came out on Xbox.
But you don't want to play that not in an arcade.
No, because you want the special scope.
You want the fucking actual goddamn sniper rifle butt sticking out of an arcade machine.
And you want that working scope.
Yeah.
Well, that was a crazy thing. They had this game at the at Solar Bowl, while it was still Solar Bowl, and before it was the Namco Foonscape, and before it was non-existent.
Yeah.
But I think it was just called like had a really generic name like Police PD or something like not even like any particular department, just police department or something like that. But it had its whole gimmick was that it was a light gun game, but it had a head sensing rig around the top of it, so it would figure out where the top of your head was, and meant you could duck around obstacles. So in order to avoid fire, you'd literally have to move your body to get out of position, like if you want any kind of cover, or any cover at all. Really, you could be in the wrong position and just be standing out in the open at times. You'd have to sidestep out of it. And it wasn't a great game, but the tech worked surprisingly well for the time.
And for like a few weeks until it broke, probably. That's probably how arcade machines usually go.
I don't know. I didn't play it all that much because it was one of those. It was basically a money grabber. It was too hard.
Yeah.
So you didn't last very long. Probably lasted longer than putting a pound into a fruity, but yeah. So my Serenade to the Light Gun game. I don't really know what else to talk about, really. Like all the other big hitters are stuff we've tended to have talked about over the years, like Rez and F-Zero, and maybe even Rush. We've talked about Rush before, right? And
yeah, a bit.
I don't particularly think that's a great game, but we played a lot of it.
No, yeah.
To the point where I can't even remember what year it's, but like 2049. 2049, that's the one. Just because of that stunt. Well, I had two different experiences with Rush. Really, it's like its racing was okay, but it was all about the shortcuts and learning where the shortcuts were. Right?
Because there was no way you could actually beat the computer lasers in a straight race.
No. You had to use the shortcuts, and you had to nail the shortcuts. The shortcuts were quite difficult to pull off.
Yeah, and that's hitting switches and shit.
Yeah, that's what made that interesting. I actually didn't mind that too much, but it kind of ran like garbage on the N64.
Naturally. Even with the expense of that.
Yeah, as most games did. But there were two multiplayer schools of thought, really. We had us playing the stunt mode.
Yeah, all the time.
And trying to, because it was... We figured out sort of the tactics for getting the maximum score, and it was kind of funny, what could happen in it.
It was funny because, you basically either scored millions or zero.
Yeah, there was very little middle ground. Sometimes you'd land what looked like a hella trick, and it would be like 4.
Yeah,
and you'd be like, "What? What just happened?" But obviously, it was all about just that level where it's just like a huge lump in the middle, and
just a big ramp.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
But then there was which is giving me an idea for another segue. But then there was the crew I used to play with at school, because I used to take my N64 into school because you kind of could. It was easy enough to move around, and we had a TV in our room, in our form room that our teacher was nice enough to let us use when there wasn't anything going on. So we used to play Rush in the battle car mode and do a lot of the actual deathmatch stuff in it, because I actually think that was a pretty decent time, actually, because the weapons are weird in that. It's like you have your tiny little pistol at all times, which is attached to the front of the car, that does next to no damage, but you can always fire it. So everyone's just firing it constantly. So the game's constantly making a horrible noise of dang, 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 dang. But then the weapons were weird, like the giant speakers set that would attach to the top of your car and just send out a shockwave. So you'd have to charge in at someone at high speed to avoid their weaponry, and then just let off the shockwave right next to them. It was quite fun to try and time it. Or the ram was always entertaining. You just run into the guy instead of shockwaving near them.
Yeah.
And there were homing missiles and chain guns and things like that. And it was actually it was a good time. It was one of the better experiences I've had with car combat games.
Yes.
Because I never really got into Vigilante, which is supposedly the big car combat game of the era. Vigilante 8, was that it? The full title? I can't remember. It had nothing to do with it being the 8th game. It was just called Vigilante 8. so a bit of a shout out to Rush. My segue there was, hey, do you remember Destruction Derby?
I knew that was where you were going.
Yeah.
When I said there was a big ramp in the middle of the arena, I was like, oh yeah, that means Red Pike Arena is coming.
Oh hell yeah! If ever we refer to Red Pike Arena, like it's because that was the first Destruction Derby arena in DD2, and it it was basically just it was like the bowl, but it had a big lump in the middle.
With the lump.
The physics were dumb. So like, because almost guaranteed every time your car would be flown, like just flung into the air, and you'd be like airborne for a good 20 seconds. Okay, maybe not that long, but it was a long old time where you're just like, I'm saving time just watching everyone crash below me while the camera's just looking down. I'm going to land at some point and I'm going to take not much damage from this.
Yeah.
But it also had that ridiculous music to go with it as well. It's just like ding 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 ding.
Exactly.
God.
DD2 was a fun game, but it wasn't. Was it as good as the first game? I'm not sure. Because I don't know, actually playing it, because they made everything so much faster, right? That it actually became hard to play.
Yeah, but actually playing any Destruction Derby game is just like the whole mechanics of that game require you to end up going real slow,
or in reverse the whole time.
Yeah, it's like basically those games are fun for about a minute or two at the start, and then it gradually degrades over time.
It becomes like when it's a one-on-one, like left on the bowl, and it's just like, okay, where even is he amongst all this carnage?
That still even applies to the like racing modes of that as well. It's like it's okay right at the start where your cars are pristine, but as soon as you start taking damage and you get slower and your handling gets fucked up, it's like then it becomes not fun.
Yeah, there's an inherent problem in Destruction Derby games. Like, I wonder if they fixed any of that for Wreckfest, or did something there to make it so that's not a problem.
You just respawn. I think that's like modern Destruction Derby. You don't grind it down until for like 5 minutes working out that last little bit of hit zone.
Because we had this like B tier Destruction Derby game on the PlayStation called Demolition Racer.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah,
for a clone of Destruction Derby.
Because that sort of did away with this whole you're messed up thing, because you could. Oh no, or did it? I thought you could just die and come back, but now I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure you did.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But basically, the trick to winning that was just to make sure you get the death from above.
Yeah.
get off a lump, land on a car, you're sorted. Had a pretty good soundtrack as well.
Yes.
I'm serious. Probably some Fear Factory in there somewhere, because Fear Factory were in every game back then. Not talk about Carmageddon. Talk about Fear Factory. Yeah. That might do me for now.
Okay.
We can always do another one of these.
Cool. Yeah.
Like
I'm kind of out of time now. So.
Episodes.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about Amiga or any of that era. But
well, again,
Mega Drive or...
They have to be videos, I think.
Well, I mean,
if you can,
quite a lot.
They're recordable.
Yeah, we've still got Supercars 2 we want to do a video of at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I want to do a video of Supercars.
Well, look forward to that. What have we got on the video plate right now?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
We've been real lazy.
Okay. That's all right, because we're going to have more podcast content coming at you at the end of the year for our Game of the Year special. So thanks for joining us for this weird 256th episode special. If you wanted to know what we're playing,
for like another 9 minutes, we can make the time say 256 as well.
Wow,
yeah,
has it really been that long?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's gone way over, so it is time.
I do apologise, listeners, but I
don't think it was your fault. I think it was maybe my fault as usual.
We all have fun.
Well, I had fun. Yeah.
Yes, and we
Maybe
will
your
catch
ears
you.
are bleeding and you're having less fun, but I had fun.
So look forward to our Game of the Year, and that'll be equally fun, if not more so. So catch you then.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to go this year. How much?
No, me neither. We shall see.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye bye.